Welcome everyone to another one of my IDW Sonic Mega Collection videos. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Basically, it's the kind of video in which I stitch together previously reviewed issues into one long video, so you can play it in the background while doing other things, laying down to get some sleep, that sort of thing. This collection in particular will contain issues 45 through 56 and the Imposter Syndrome Miniseries. In other words, the build-up and debut of Surge the Tenric and Kit the Fennec. These videos will be modified to remove the titles and credits, but for the most part, they're the same videos, warts and all. So without further ado, please enjoy these lengthy series of reviews, and I'll catch you guys at the end. Welcome everyone to another IDW Sonic comic review, and today we're looking at issue 45, the start of a new arc called Trial by Fire, which itself is part of a larger saga called The Road to Issue 50. Before we continue, spoilers from this point forward. The past two arcs have been insane, with a tower full of freaky experiments, to finally dealing with the Deadly Six. What the two stories had in common was, there's a subplot revolving around the newest comic original character, Belle the Tinkerer. One plot featured a villain sharing an earth-shattering revelation, and another exploiting her designs for his own plans. If you want details, you can read up on them, or watch or rewatch my past reviews. If the covers of this arc are accurate in any way, it looks like she'll suffer more. Ian, Evan, what did Belle do to you to warrant such treatment? By the way, Evan Stanley's back on writing duties for this arc. Anyway, let's dive on in, shall we? Our story begins with Sonic and Tails loading up Amy's car with the latter's experimental camping gear. She's looking forward to this trip with the girls. Sonic considers coming along, until Tails reminds him that he promised to play the new Ages game with 2-player mode. Bye you two, enjoy playing that new Sinnoh game. Amy, after picking up Tangle, Jewel, and Belle, are off to Forest Ridge Zone. Tangle is ready for this little adventure, however, she wishes a certain someone is with her. There's a flashback of Whisper trying to sneak off before a jogging Tangle catches her. With Mimic on the loose again, see the Bad Guys miniseries for more details, Whisper cannot risk sticking around without endangering everyone. Tangle tries and fails to convince her to stay, and all she can do is watch her new best friend disappear once more. Likewise, Jewel and Belle had their own restoration drama, and Amy hopes this camping trip will get everyone to relax. And by everyone, I mean the whole freaking planet, it seems. Amy talks with the park ranger, and as he confirms her campsite reservation, he adds this warning. Thanks to the metal virus infecting the plants throughout the winter, they were unable to absorb any water. Therefore, he's limiting the use of fire only to certain marked areas, unless they plan to burn the forest to the ground. As the girls drive off, we see the ranger's son Ash run into the forest with his burst wisp. Yeah, this is going to end well. Everyone is setting up camp. Sort of. Despite all the high-tech gizmos he loaned Amy, Tails failed to consider the bare essentials, like say, a match. Luckily, Belle's equipped with a fire-making finger. Yes, the wooden robot can make fire. Later that night, the girls, except for Belle, are making some marshmallows. Tangle's so distracted with things she almost burned hers. Good thing that's the only thing burning, huh? Amy gets the night going by pulling out some cards. Not your standard playing cards, or even Uno cards, but tarot cards. She explains that she's an expert practitioner when it comes to fortune telling, and to prove it, she pulls out the Master card, which means strength and leadership, appropriate for Director Jewel. Next up is Tangle. Amy picks the Chaos Fruit card. According to her, it's about the balance of opposing sides. It could be related to a showdown, a moral dilemma, or even a partnership. Tangle thinks it might be due to a lack of excitement at Restoration HQ. And she has a point. Aside from the Zeddy attack and sneaking off into that experimental tower with Belle, she's basically bored there. I'll touch upon this more in the next section, but I think there's more to the Chaos Fruit card than meets the eye. Amy moves on to Belle, and when pulling out her card, she sees something that shocks even her. Belle wants to see the card, but her clumsiness knocks the deck out of Amy's hands. It just so happens the one that was selected landed in the fire. Wonder if it means anything. Belle starts picking up the cards, and Amy says the one in her hand, the statue savior, is all about mercy and protection. It's nice of Amy to deceive Belle in order to make her feel better. Everyone heads for bed, except for Belle. She goes out for a walk in the woods until she spots shrubbery in the shape of Sonic's head. As she investigates using her finger lighter, a motobug pops out and knocks Belle down. The impact forces her offline, except for the finger lighter. Amy wakes up to the smell of smoke and spots a forest fire on the horizon. The campers are in a panic, trying to flee the area in a hurry, and the ranger is searching for his son in the chaos, believing he wandered off into the woods again. We end part 1 with Tangle going to search for the kid, while Amy and Jewel help the ranger get the people to safety. There are callbacks aplenty in this issue. One of them sets up the plot. It's interesting that long after the metavirus has been eradicated, its after effects are still felt. In this case, the plants weren't able to absorb any water while transformed, making them easily susceptible to fire. As for the actual cause of the fire, there are 2 possible candidates. First, there's the ranger's son Ash and his burst wisp that went into the woods. You know how kids are. They can be reckless at times, and that recklessness can be damaging, especially with an alien creature that can produce fire. Quick note, I think Evan made the ranger and his son Ash bears on purpose, in a story about forest fires. Do I need to connect the dots? Only you can figure this out. While it is possible Ash and his wisp caused the fire, it can also be a red herring. Which brings us to the other possible source of the fire, the offline Belle and her still active finger lighter. Based on how it happened, I think it was a setup. The biggest evidence is the sonic shrubbery and the motobug associated with it. The last time we saw that combination was way back in issue 12. Mr. Tinker modified a motobug to do some bush trimming, and this was after Dr. Starline mind screwed him. So he was still in that mental state between Tinker and Eggman until Metal Sonic's arrival finished the job. If it is that same motobug, someone is using it for their own sinister means. Another callback that doesn't get brought up often is Amy's tarot card ability. I like to imagine newer Sonic fans thinking, she can do that? While older Sonic fans are like, oh yeah, she can do that. She even brings up how the tarot cards led her to Sonic, which is her Sonic CD backstory. Okay, to go off on a brief tangent, does this mean the classic games happen in this universe too? Because I thought Sega at this point in time are doing the whole classic era and modern era as 2 different universes thing. You see why I'm not a fan of this idea. It leads to this kind of confusion. Seriously, why can't it just be one singular timeline? The classic era is in the past, the modern era is the future. Whatever, let's move on. Amy using the cards on the girls might be setting up things for the future. Based on Amy's reaction, Belle's card probably foretells something very bad down the line, and we might be seeing the beginning of it here. Although her fate could change because she picked up the Statue Savior card. So who knows at this point? Jewel may have lucked out with the MasterCard. Why do I keep thinking of the credit card when I say it? But I think she's linked to another tarot card related issue, and it involves Tangle. A reminder, the Chaos Fruit card is about balancing opposing sides, and one of the possibilities is partnership. We automatically think it's all about Whisper leaving the Restoration and Tangle behind. I understand why she had to leave. Mimic's on the loose again. He even declared his intentions to pay Whisper a visit, and while his imitations aren't perfect, they can be good enough to fool the average person. Tangle should understand this. She fought the guy after all, and perhaps she does. But it still stings for her to see Whisper go bye-bye. Maybe it's setting up for a future miniseries. Tangle and Whisper 2, Mimic's Revenge. That's not the only thing occupying Tangle's mind. There's the aforementioned boredom at Restoration HQ. She's only there to support Jewel, but it comes at the cost of freelance excitement. Jewel seems to recognize this based on her facial expressions. The two have been friends since childhood, and the two are opposites in different ways. The chaotic action Tangle, and the organized non-action Jewel. There is also the possibility that Jewel is worried Whisper is taking her place in Tangle's mind. A little jealous, perhaps? Going back to Tangle and her need for excitement, it's also why Tangle is on this trip and is eager to go searching for Ash during the forest fire. She thrives during chaotic situations, while still doing the right thing, of course. Before we wrap this up, let's briefly point out some Easter eggs. We see the return of Amy's pink cabriolet and Tails' Central City house. And behind said house is extreme gear. And take a look at the shot of Forest Ridge Zone's campgrounds. There's a Big the Cat cameo, of course. And who's that orange cat nearby? Besides the gloves, it looks like a thinner version of Garfield from behind. Was that Evan or another creator trying to do a small nod to this? If so, kudos. This was a decent start, allowing for nice character interactions before kicking off the story's conflict. And there's the mystery on who or what started the fire. Even though there's evidence to support two candidates, I still believe another party planned this. We have 2 more issues to find out. That's right, this is a 3-issue arc. Part 2 is scheduled to come out later this month, according to IDW's October press release. We'll see. Last minute update, as I was editing the video, IDW released the first few pages of issue 46. I'm doubling down on spoilers because the first page reveals who might really be behind the fire. Boy, those silhouettes look familiar. And there is a surprise revelation about the Motobug. But I'll save that for next time. See you then. Guys, you're playing Puyo Puyo wrong. You're supposed to play it like this. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 46 and part 2 of Trial by Fire. As always, before getting started, I'll recap what's happened last time for your convenience, and there will be spoilers from this point forward. Amy, Tangle, Jewel, and Belle traveled to Forest Ridge Zone Park for a relaxing camping trip. The thing is, the metal virus prevented the local flora from absorbing water, meaning fire in a non-designated area could burn the whole place down. After some bonding over Amy's fortune-telling abilities, the girls went to bed, except for Belle. She went for an evening stroll and encountered a bush shaped like Sonic's head, along with the Motobug that trimmed it. For some reason, when Mr. Tinker made Belle, he installed a lighter in the wooden robot. Even though the Motobug knocked Belle offline, the lighter was still active. A forest fire broke out not long after. Amy and Jewel would help the park ranger get everyone to safety, while Tangle left to go search for the ranger's son. The ranger explains to Amy and Jewel the only road out of the park cannot accommodate the massive crowd. The moment he opens the gate to said road, the people will trample all over each other and risk serious injury. And the wind is blowing the fire towards them. Amy wonders if Jewel has any ideas. Jewel wants to coordinate, but the people are too angry to do so. For example, this guy here is confronting the ranger and demands that he open the gates to let the families out. Things heat up, figuratively of course, when the ranger brings up his missing son. The campers note the son, Ash, had a fiery wisp with him. Before the crowd riots, Amy gets everyone's attention by cracking a nearby boulder. She sympathizes with the campers, but also explains the road situation. She turns the planning over to Jewel, who's not ready for this. Thankfully, Amy buys some time by threatening the people with her hammer. Our hero, everyone. Okay, to be honest, I do kinda wanna see Amy bash this guy in the head. Jewel admits she's only good with paperwork and rocks. When it comes to stuff like the metal virus, the Eggman attacks, and the Zeddy stuff, she stumbles. Amy says even through all that, Jewel did her best and made it out of each situation stronger and believes she can get through this one too. She even gives her the Master Tarot card as a confidence booster. It works as Jewel explains what everyone needs to do. She wants any available high-capacity vehicle loaded with children and the elderly so they can be transported to safety. Then, to protect everyone and the forest, she has every able-bodied person use equipment provided by the ranger to create a perimeter. The idea is to keep the fire from spreading out further. Anyway, let's move closer to the fire's starting point. Belle reactivates not far from the fire, and a couple of silhouettes are standing next to it. The fire from Belle's finger lighter burns off her glove, revealing her metal endoskeletal hand. Before it burns the rest of her, the Motobug reappears and puts out the fire with some dirt. It's also revealed that it dragged her far from the massive inferno. Tangle arrives and Belle stops her from smashing the Motobug. The lemur wraps Belle's exposed hand with some of her own bandages before they head off to search for the Ranger's son. The problem with traveling through a forest fire is all that smoke can do a number on your lungs, as Tangle experiences firsthand. They spot Ash and his wisp on the other side of a ravine. The two slide down a steep hill, and the Motobug decides to give them a lift. However, they're now moving too fast towards the cliff. Belle tells Tangle to pull her tail at the right moment, and when she does, Belle's kick action launches them into the air. Tangle then uses her tail to lasso them across the gap to Ash. Belle gets the scared kid to trust her by honking her clown nose. Since Ash now believes the two are here to help, he tells the girls about two individuals, a lady with big spikes and a boy his size, and how the former started the fire with lightning. Belle believes him because she recalls seeing those two earlier when she was reactivating. The group make their way back by following the river downstream, but that pesky forest fire won't let them be. Tangle rescues Belle and Ash from the burning tree, although they're now dangling off the cliff. The burning tree's weight causes the cliffside to collapse, taking Tangle, Belle, Ash, and the Motobug with it. At least the Wisp will be fine. Just as I thought, Ash's burst wisp, whom he named Red Hot, and Belle's finger lighter were red herrings. The real culprit behind the forest fire is Starline's creation, Surge the Teneric. Thanks to her lightning powers. My guess is she and Starline's other creation, Kit the Fennec, were out on a field test. I have a feeling we're going to see the forest fire from their point of view sometime in the future. The purpose of the Amy and Jewel portion of the story is to show the latter stepping up during a life and death situation. Only after the former kind of forces her into the situation. In Amy's defense, she thinks Jewel's ready. Let's briefly recap Jewel's journey so far. When she first offered to take over administration duties at the Restoration, she wanted to organize things and help rebuild. She did not expect villains to attack and throw her off her game. To be fair, Amy was right. Jewel did get a little stronger with each incident. When Eggman attacked Spiral Hill Village with the Omega Mech, Jewel, who just got the leadership job, was too nervous to give orders. Vector had to step in. Compare that to the Zuddy attack. She was still nervous, but she was able to call in the right people to help save the day. To give Jewel some credit, she is capable of heading into danger to save others, like getting the Sonic Fan Club members away from the Zombots. And she did reorganize Restoration HQ and place it in a new location after the Zombots tore the old one to shreds. Now Jewel's applying all of her past experiences to help the campers, focusing on getting the most vulnerable to safety and buying time for everyone else. I commend her for this. Sometimes leaders can arise from a crisis. That said, Amy could use a little more tact when thrusting Jewel into the spotlight. Yeah, there was a timing issue considering forest fire and angry and scared campers, but still. Then again, there have been moments throughout the franchise where Amy displays a lack of tact, especially towards a certain character. As for why Amy didn't step up, she said herself. She's all about leading the charge, not figuring out the logistics. Kinda odd since you were the Restoration leader before Jewel, and before that the brains behind the Resistance. Admit it, even though Knuckles was the leader, Amy was the one truly calling the shots. Within those organizations, she did a lot of organizing and planning. Then again, all that paperwork was starting to get to her, and she wanted to quit. She kept pressing on because no one else could do the job, until Jewel showed up. It seems Amy works better as a field leader, giving orders in a combat situation to successfully take down enemies. At least that's what I get from the writing. And I also think the writers want Amy back out there adventuring, rather than being tied to one place. let's move over to the Tangle and Bell portion of our story. I am now 99.9% certain that Motobug is the same one modified by Mr. Tinker prior to becoming Eggman again. Seeing as it helps Bell in various ways, I wonder if it's a last-minute gift from him. I think Mr. Tinker knew his mind would eventually fade away after going through Starline's machine, so he held on long enough to reprogram the Motobug just to keep Belle company. It was probably searching for her, and it just happened to find her in the forest prior to the fire. That's probably why he knocked her out, to keep Surge and Kit from finding her. I wonder if Belle mounting the Motobug is a nod to the classic era's Heavy Rider. I mean, it has to be, right? Belle also seems less clumsy and more confident since meeting the Motobug, and getting her hand burned. She uses her pull tail and kick ability in a creative way, and gets a child to trust her thanks to her clown nose, something Tangle herself didn't realize. When you think about it, it does make sense. Mr. Tinker wanted to entertain the children, and Belle, being his creation, would want to do the same. Going over to Tangle, she was willing to risk her life to find the kid. Brave, but foolish, and sometimes they can be one and the same. She did help her tail buddy at key moments, and she was kind enough to cover Belle's exposed hand with some of her bandages. I guess Evan didn't want to keep drawing the metal hand. In a nice touch, Belle's metal hand strongly resembles Metal Sonic's. I believe we all know why. Evan's not the only artist on this issue. Adam Bryce Thomas worked on the Amy and Jewel portion. Wait, that means... let me look for her, and... there's Lanolin, Adam's favorite calling card. It's also nice, meta-wise, that he included the group of villagers from the 2019 annual's Pyramid story. I guess even they needed a break from the old Eggman base. We have one more issue of this story arc, and I wonder how the characters will get out of this cliffhanger and resolve the situation. We'll find out when issue 47 comes out in December. Yeah, that's when it's scheduled to come out at the time of recording. Thankfully, we won't be devoid of IDW Sonic content for November, as the first issue of Imposter Syndrome is scheduled to come out in the middle of the month. And like this story arc, the miniseries is part of the overall Road to Issue 50 saga. So I'll either see you there, or at the final issue of this arc. Bye now. Yeah, Tangle, if you value your bicycle, don't mess with the wooden maintenance robot's pink clown nose. Well, here we are. IDW Sonic 47, the final issue of Trial by Fire, and our final issue of 2021. Before I continue, I'll place my spoiler warning here. At the time of this video's release, it's been roughly 2 months since issue 46 came out. But as I've said, this arc is part of the overall Road to Issue 50 saga, and between the previous issue and this one, IDW Sonic started another path to issue 50 in the form of Imposter Syndrome number 1. As I speculated there, it's to presumably line things up by the time the big 5-0 arrives. At this point, if you wish to go on to the summary of this issue, here's the time code right here. I'm telling you this now because I'm really going in hard on the spoilers related to Imposter Syndrome. Okay, here we go. Imposter Syndrome number 1 revealed the start of the forest fire from the point of view of the perpetrators. The idea being Starline wants to get rid of some of Sonic's friends, while making it look like an accident. That plan went up in smoke, as later on, he read a news article stating everyone at the campground survived. Now that we know everyone will be okay, it's time to see the how. But first, a quick reminder of where everyone's at. Amy has thrusted Jewel into taking charge of the campers' safety due to her exceptional organization skills. At the same time, Team Tail Buddies and their new pet Motobug rescued the park ranger's son, learned who was responsible for the fire, and got themselves into more danger. Everyone miraculously lands safely in the river. Tangle uses her tail to pull Belle and Ash onto the log, while at the same time enjoying some rolling action. No, really, she loved the experience. Ash, on the other hand, is rightfully scared. The upcoming rough waters are not helping. Belle's able to calm the boy down by assuring him that they'll both be brave together. As they go through the rapids, Tangle realizes this is what she wants: excitement, action, helping people, doing new things, and just going for it, like she did with Whisper. Still missing her, huh? Well, Tangle, one thing you won't miss is the waterfall straight ahead. Meanwhile, Amy, Jewel, and the campers are using the river water to slow the spread of the fire. As luck would have it, they're right next to the waterfall that Tangle's group just went over. Jewel and Amy pull them out of the water, and father and son reunite. The ranger thanks Belle for keeping Ash safe, and Belle says it's what she does. Oh, and the Moabug's fine, in case you're wondering. After Belle and Tangle explain that it's okay, Amy just rolls with it. Jewel's more concerned about the fire breaking through the area, and putting the people at risk. Upon hearing that, Amy's ready to throw in the towel, wanting to focus more on getting the people out, rather than saving both them and the forest. That's quitter talk, Amy. Tangle and Belle did not go through all that trouble saving the ranger's son just to bail, and you placed Jewel in charge of solving this problem. In fact, Jewel has a plan. A risky one that will require all four of them, but if they pull it off, it'll save the people and the forest. She has Amy and Tangle dam the river, while she and Belle tell the people to head for the park gate. As water fills the area, Belle and her Motobug companion help get the stragglers out of there. Once Jewel feels there's enough blocked water, she wants the dam destroyed. Amy is happy to oblige. The water soaking the ground will stop the fires from spreading through the undergrowth, and the trees in the camping area are far enough to prevent spreading to the canopy. TLDR, they saved the day. With the crisis over, the girls pat each other on the back. Then Tangle flat out tells Jewel she's quitting the restoration. Okay, that's a bit too blunt, Tangle. Jewel understands. Tangle's only with the restoration because of her, and she admits she needed her childhood friend because she wasn't confident enough to lead the organization. She goes on to give Tangle her blessing, saying the world needs people like her out there, and not tied down by the machinations of an organization. Sometime later, Tails is able to fix Belle's hand, and wants to take a closer look at the Motobug. The two hope to replicate its personality with other badniks, even if it's just a small group. Meanwhile, Tangle is with Sonic and Amy. Now that she's going independent, she's going to track down Whisper and accept her offer of traveling together. She also had another off-panel chat with Jewel, and they're going to try something new. We don't know what it is at this time. As they watch Tangle ride off, Sonic and Amy joke about how the latter never really got that relaxing vacation. Amy's just relieved that she and the girls prevented the situation, and hope it was just a fluke. Based on his look, Sonic has some doubts. Back at the park, the ranger inspects the burnt area. Near a still burning tree are two sets of footprints. He then contacts someone, and together, they confirm the forest fire was no accident. And we end the issue with the Chaotix, setting the stage for our next story. In addition to being part of the overall Road to Issue 50 saga, Trial by Fire is a character piece for the 3 comic originals. Actually, it's a culmination of their character arcs that started at the beginning of this year. And all are indeed related to Amy's tarot card predictions. Jewel has finally gained enough confidence to come up with a plan to save the people and the forest. As Amy said, all she needed was a little encouragement. Admittedly, our hammer-wielding pink hedgehog's tactics of placing Jewel in charge worked out because she saw that inner strength. To be fair, Jewel went on a lot of adventures with Tangle in their younger days. One has to be brave to hang out with that lemur. And that's why Jewel was reluctant at first to let Tangle go. She was, for all intents and purposes, her safety blanket, which did come in handy when the Zeddy attacked. By going through her trial, Jewel feels ready to tackle bigger things down the line. We don't know if any future plans she comes up with will work, but I can say, whether she succeeds or fails, she will gain experience and be a better leader for it. Tangle's arc has her finally accepting who she is, an adventurer not tied down to any one place. That sounds familiar. Once again, she's only in the restoration for Jewel's sake. Despite handing in her resignation in the least subtle way possible, she does care about her friend. And Jewel, by this point no longer needing her Tangle security blanket, wants to honor her friend's request and let her go. There was that additional off-panel chat later on, and that new thing. I think we'll learn what it is sometime in the future. Tangle's now off to partner with Whisper, someone who is the opposite of her in every way. Nice callback to the end of their miniseries, by the way. Now I definitely want a sequel miniseries, or at the very least, see this plot thread continue in some fashion. Finally, we have Belle. I don't think I need to remind you of all the things she's been through this past year. So it's a relief that the wooden robot finally gets a break from all the suffering. Getting a new robot companion and helping a scared boy factored into this win. Seriously, Belle must have been happy on the inside when the park ranger thanked her. For once, a background character is not treating her like Frankenstein's monster. We never found out what was on the original tarot card that Belle accidentally knocked into the fire, but the one she picked up, the Statue Savior, does fit her to a T. Not only did she protect Ash, she helped get the campers to safety during the dam plan. Not bad for her first time being an active hero. She still has a lot to learn, but for the moment, she's in good company. Belle also kept the others from smashing the good Motobug on sight, granting mercy as it were. At the end of the story, she and Tails wonder if they can replicate this programming onto other badniks. And Tails is completely on board with this. As he said, he saw previous Eggman robots defy their programming, although they were advanced models. This feels like more setup. And if this is indeed Tinker's Motobug, and Tails is able to duplicate its programming, in a way, Eggman might have screwed himself. As for the arc only being 3 parts long, I'll go ahead and say that I like it. The story is well paced, and each issue follows the basic 3-act narrative structure: setup, conflict, and resolution. I'd like to see more arcs follow this method. Not all of them, of course. Gotta have more issues reserved for the bigger stories. But for smaller character tales, Trial by Fire should be the standard. I'm just wondering how they'll handle the trades when the time comes. All in all, this is a good story that shifts a few players around, while still linking it to the overall threat of the issue 50 saga, R2 Arsonists. And spoilers, Forest Ridge is not the only place they cause trouble. Once more, thanks to the last page of the issue, the next one will feature the Chaotix. They're going to investigate the chaos surrounding Central City's traffic system. Gee, I wonder what could have happened there. I'll see you in issue 48. This Motobug needs a name. How about Jammy, or Jerry, or perhaps Johnny? I don't know. Perhaps you have a name in mind for this guy. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 48. Spoilers from this point forward. We're continuing the road to issue 50 with a one-issue story focusing on the Chaotix. If you recall, the previous 3 issues dealt with a completely different problem than what the Chaotix will face today. But there is one thing linking the 2 incidents together: Dr. Starline's creations, Surge and Kit. They caused the forest fire in an attempt to kill Sonic's friends, and cause some chaos regarding Central City's traffic. It's time for the Chaotix to deal with the aftermath of the latter problem. We begin with Vector and SBO arriving at 199.2 KTBR, the radio station from the 2020 annual, to collect Charmy. The two went to a library to return some books, and Charmy's banned from the place for life. So Night and Dawn agreed to watch him during their evening shift. Before the Chaotix leave, Night hands Vector a list of calls from Central City, and those calls mention power outages and traffic problems. This garners Vector's interest because, as always, he hopes for a reward if they can solve the mystery. Getting to their destination is a problem thanks to a massive traffic jam. The Chaotix have been down this road before. Pun completely intended, and I will not apologize for it. Since they don't want to miss the action this time, they move their car off the road and have Charmy fly them over to the city. Upon arriving, the Chaotix assess the situation. They start questioning some of the locals about what happened, which soon balloons into a massive crowd demanding their assistance. The Chaotix don't know where to begin until Crinkly Wrinkly steps forward. He claims he saw a mutant monster crocodile coming from the sewers. While the old man appears to be off his rocker, not to mention possibly offending Vector, the Chaotix decide to check out the sewers for clues. As they explore, they find severe damage to the wiring. While speculating on who or what could have done it, Charmy spots a shadowy individual carrying a crate. The Chaotix give chase, causing the figure to drop the crate and run deeper into the shadows. The detectives can't see anything, but they smell something bad. So bad that they give up the chase. It would make sense because they're in a sewer. However, this panel shows the source of the smell, our mysterious individual. I think a lot of us know who it is, but I'll save it for the big reveal later. The Chaotix examine the crate and find it full of broken Badnik parts. They also find where the crate came from. Later, as they search the deserted shipping yards, they catch a whiff of that same bad smell from the sewers. They follow it to a seemingly abandoned warehouse. SBO hears voices inside and turns invisible so he can get a closer look. Inside, we see that yes, the smell came from Ruff the skunk. He and his brother Tumble are now working for shady businessman Clutch the Possum. Ruff explains his encounter with the Chaotix, an encounter that cost them a crate and the only route out of the city. Clutch lectures the two that, with no way out, he's unable to get his goods, the ones he was able to salvage from his home, to his buying customers. All because of, quote, some third-rate gumshoes. Hey now, the Chaotix may bumble every now and then, but they have their moments. This isn't one of them. Clutch uses the sound to expose SBO by shooting at him. Vector hollers his way into the warehouse, and the fight is on. Clutch tries to sneak off, but SBO catches him. He forces him at knife point, or rather kunai point, to reveal that he, Ruff, and Tumble had nothing to do with the traffic chaos. Vector wants to know what's the deal with Clutch. The Possum explains that long ago, he had a reputation as an arms dealer, and was content with retiring in White Park with his chow, until his home got wrecked during the chow races and Badnik bases arc. That was an eye-opener for him. There's a whole new generation of heroes that never dealt with the likes of him, and he's going to change that by rebuilding his criminal empire. Well, he's going to have to start from scratch as Vector forces the remaining inventory into the water. Clutch makes his getaway by using some smoke bombs he swiped from SBO, dragging Ruff and Tumble with him. Before disappearing, he wants the Chaotix to spread the word on his return. The Chaotix are left flummoxed. They did not mean to stumble upon Clutch's operation, and the ones behind the city's traffic problems are long gone. All they can do now is wait and see what happens next. Remember last issue when I wondered how the eventual Trial by Fire graphic novel would work with the arc only lasting 3 issues? Well, I believe I got my answer with Hit the Pavement. On to the story itself. Back when I reviewed the 2020 annual, I mentioned that when Evan Stanley created the characters Night the Owl and Dawn the Rooster, she wanted to use them as messengers for other characters in order to kick off plots. She finally fulfills that objective in this story, with Night passing on caller information to the Chaotix. It's also revealed that the Chaotix and the radio guys have history. The detectives trust Night and Dawn to look after Charmy, and Night provided possible cases for the group in the past. The large crowd that confronted the Chaotix before they went into the sewers, for instance, there's the aforementioned Crinkly Wrinkly. In a way, it kind of makes sense because an episode of OK Go was dedicated to Sonic the Hedgehog. This is just the comic creators returning the favor. Other characters in the crowd include Wally from Where's Wally, Raijin from Mob Psycho 100, Conan and Rand from Case Closed, Wreck-It Ralph and Vanellope Von Sweet, possibly another case of returning the favor since Sonic was in those movies. And finally, the pink-furred individual here is modeled after the glitched Big from Sonic Adventure. There might be more shoutouts among the crowd, but those are all the known ones. The story also serves to shuffle around some lower-tier villains. After the events of Bad Guys, Ruff and Tumble found new employment with Clutch the Possum. It actually makes sense because ever since their introduction, Rough and Tumble's thing is getting the coolest weapons. And what better way to get some than to work for an arms dealer? I'm not that surprised we see Clutch again. After slipping away in issue 35, it was inevitable. I didn't expect it to be this soon. I'm also surprised that he's old, like really old. Seriously, it's hard to tell when looking at him. Maybe the characters in-universe see something I don't? For an old guy, he sure is spry when confronting the younger heroes. In this issue alone, he outwits Espio twice. It seems Clutch, along with Rough and Tumble, will become more active at some point in the future. Which is good. I keep saying, we need a rogues gallery beyond Eggman, and with Starline attempting to rise towards the upper tier, the comic needs to establish more of the lower criminal element. One that can give the heroes the occasional migraine. And I bet you the Chaotix have one at the end of this story. Not only did Clutch and his crew escape, though without their inventory, the trail they were originally following has gone cold. That is a testament to the stealth field test Starline put Surge and Kit through in Imposter Syndrome #1. And depending on how the rest of the Imposter Syndrome miniseries plays out, that trio might give the heroes a splitting headache very soon. The art, as always, is very nice, and I want to single out the sewer scenes prior to the encounter with Ruff. There's a very foreboding atmosphere to it, especially with the cut wires in the background. It's a reminder that while Kit, who did the deed, might look timid, he can be dangerous. At the end of the day, Hit the Pavement is a breather story sandwiched between the action-oriented Trial by Fire arc and what is about to come. And coming up is a follow-up to a subplot that began in the previous issue. Tails and Bell wanting to reprogram the Badniks using the good Motobug's coding as a basis. And according to future solicitations, that'll lead them to discover something about the Badniks' behavior that prompts an investigation. All of this and more will be in issue 49, which comes out this April. The month of March is dedicated to Imposter Syndrome #3. Again, this is all part of the overall plan for the road to issue 50. And I'll see you at the next stage of this journey. What kind of horrible thing did 6-year-old Charmy do to get himself banned for life from a library? It probably involves some crayons. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 49. You know, the idea of alternating between the main series and the Imposter Syndrome miniseries each month is good on principle. Don't want to accidentally spoil things before it's time. The execution, though, was not well thought out, especially if you factor in delays. For example, issue 49 was supposed to come out on 4/20, but it was delayed a week. Thankfully, the road to issue 50 is almost over, as we have reached the penultimate issue before the big event. Before I continue, I will be placing my spoiler warning right here. While 49 does lead into 50, it also follows up on a plot thread introduced in Trial by Fire. During that arc, Belle came across a friendly Motobug that helped her out numerous times. At the end of the story, she and Tails wanted to see if they could replicate the friendly coding onto other Badniks. Now, let's see this plan in action. At Tails' workshop, the one not in Central City, Belle isolates the non-aggression subroutine from Motobud, the friendly Motobug, and transfers it to a group of Badniks in the area. Once completed, a hidden Tails lifts the sheet covering Sonic. Instead of attacking Sonic on sight, the Badniks are harmlessly playing around the area. This successful test gives Belle hope that all the Badniks can be turned good. Tails is cautious though. With all the weird things that have happened recently, i.e. the forest fire and the Central City power outage, something big is coming that may or may not be Eggman related. Whatever it is, Sonic's confident they can deal with it. That night, Sonic and Tails wake up to the sound of Motobud trying to claw its way out of the house. It attacks Sonic when he tries to get in its way. Motobud's not the only one acting off. A glowing pink-eyed Belle emerges, uttering the phrase "must get out" in a hypnotic tone. Tails suspects that she and Motobud are under a control signal, just like what they were trying to do earlier, only this one is stronger and worse. Tails rushes to his lab to find something to help Belle, while Sonic tries to buy time. This whole sequence plays like a killer doll horror film, only instead of Chunky, it's something that resembles a wooden puppet. So, Slappy? Motobud pins Sonic, while Belle prepares to stab him with 5 sharp tools from her fingers. Ooh, Go-Go Gadget stab. Tails arrives and slaps the prototype Zeddy Zapper on Belle. Since it was designed to block signals going in and out, Belle's able to return to normal. She reveals Eggman's responsible for the signal, and that he's calling all badniks to a single location. Being isolated from it, she can no longer pinpoint where the badniks are going. Luckily, they still have Motobud. They follow it for a bit before coming across some civilians attacking more mind-controlled badniks. Sonic gets the people out of the way, and they continue following the badniks to the source. The journey takes them to what appears to be the middle of nowhere, until Tails heads up for an aerial view of their destination. An enormous Eggman city with a large tower in the center. Belle wants to stop Motobud from entering the city, with the only options being Sonic doing what he does best, placing the Zeddy Zapper onto it, which will leave Belle vulnerable to the signal again, or Belle deactivating it. They go with option 3. The other badniks react to this action, but as soon as Belle cuts the power, they resume marching towards the city. Belle notices something in Motobud. A note from Mr. Tinker to her. It's basically a final goodbye and telling Belle that he loves her. He knew he was a goner and said that he lived a good life, and the thought of being Dr. Eggman turned his stomach. And if it does turn out to be the case, he is truly and deeply sorry. Belle breaks down, again, and calls herself stupid for trying to make a difference. Sonic quickly points out that she already has. Everything she's experienced, the good memories, the friends she's made, it was all real. All they can do now is move forward together. Belle is ready to do just that. So the 3 speed off towards Eggman City, not knowing they're running into a trap. Well, we can add a few more tallies to the Let's Make Belle Suffer board. Even she's getting tired of this nonsense. Theirs being mind-controlled by a mysterious signal. It was established back in Test Run that Mr. Tinker subconsciously built Belle with similar coding to the badniks, so like them, she would be vulnerable to the control signal. I wouldn't be surprised if she was made from badnik parts like the kitty rides. She does have metal underneath all that wood. Next is putting down Motobud. Earlier in the issue, there was a panel of Belle cuddling up to her new companion, which makes cutting the power a bit of a gut punch. I like the visual touch with Motobud. It has a flower in its broken antennae when it's good, and when it's under mind control, the flower is gone. Belle being the one to cut Motobud's power was nothing compared to the massive emotional punch in this issue. Belle finding Mr. Tinker's goodbye note to her inside Motobud. I think we can bump Motobud being the same badnik Mr. Tinker modified to 100%. He designed it specifically to carry the note to Belle, even though by his own admission, there's a slim chance she gets it. Given that this is a world where robots like Motobud get smashed all the time, it's understandable. Luckily, Motobud found Belle and fulfilled its purpose. So yes, Mr. Tinker knew he wasn't going to make it. Outside of some magically induced cloning or something, Mr. Tinker is indeed gone for good. These last moments really illustrate how different him and Eggman are. I could see Eggman, knowing that he's 100% a goner, yelling and screaming no with a touch of I hate that hedgehog. In contrast, after getting mind screwed by Starline, Mr. Tinker accepted his possible demise with dignity. In fact, we saw this already. Mr. Tinker's final moment before Eggman came back is wanting to fix the damaged Metal Sonic. I do have to wonder if these moments in issue 12 were to set up for events like this down the line. Things haven't been all bad for Belle. As Sonic said, she did do some good since joining up with the heroes. See Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C. As a setup to issue 50, this story does a good job at slowly building things up. There is little action, but I think that's the point. They want to save the big stuff for the main event. Still, seeing the Sonic vs. Belle fight is unnerving, especially when she utilizes her pull, tail, and kick ability maliciously. Then again, Evan Stanley wrote and drew this issue, and she's been known to dive into the creepy. She's also known for writing good moments for Sonic and Tails, like when Tails is surprised Sonic wants tacos instead of chili dogs. Now just because a character has a trademark favorite food, doesn't mean they eat it all the time. Garfield doesn't always eat lasagna, the Ninja Turtles don't always eat pizza, and Homer Simpson doesn't always eat donuts. I'm just saying, it's more common than you think. Evan also threw an unexpected game nod here. There's a panel of Sonic asleep on the couch with a book on his face. This time, instead of being transported to a magical storybook world, he speeds off to a city that's filling up with badniks. We get a first real glimpse of Eggman's new city, Eggtropolis. It's a hexagonal design, each of its 6 sections being a different color, and a giant tower in the middle. I like it. Definitely a change from the standard polluted cities the villain used in the past. Then again, we only see it from a distance. The control signal calling the badniks may have originated from Eggman's city, but if you've been keeping up with the Imposter Syndrome Miniseries, then you should know who the real culprits are. I'm not kidding when I said Sonic, Tails, and Belle are heading straight for a trap. Next issue, it's time. But before it comes out, there will be one more issue of Imposter Syndrome that'll set up issue 50 from the villain's point of view. Everything is about to come to a head, and I'll see you all then. Hold on, this just came to me. Would Omega be vulnerable to the control signal like Belle, or would he be exempt due to him being an E-Series robot? Welcome everyone to a brand new IDW Sonic miniseries event, Imposter Syndrome. Ever since it was announced some months back, there has been some build up to this moment. Before we continue, I'm going to give my obligatory spoiler warnings. If you don't count the issue 46 cameo, the miniseries will mark the official debut of Dr. Starline's test tube creations, Surge the Teneric, and Kit the Fennec. IDW Publishing went out of its way to try and promote these characters. For example, they posted some TikTok videos of concept art featuring these two and... Oh, Kit, what are you doing to that guy? Oh dear. Anyway, I'll talk more about these two in the general thoughts section. As for Starline's newest plan, while it appears the seeds have been planted as far back as the Bad Guys miniseries, there's also the chance the idea could have happened much earlier, such as here, or even here. The point is, Starline, after all the scheming, deceiving, and kidnapping, he's ready to take his new creations for a test drive. Imposter Syndrome is also part of a larger saga going on called The Road to Issue 50, which began with the main series story arc, Trial by Fire, the conclusion of which will come out in December. I'm guessing they're beginning this miniseries now so that everything lines up when issue 50 arrives. You can even see the build up to issue 50 on the cover. I'm not putting this off any longer, so let's get started. Starline is recording another vlog detailing his progress on what he calls Operation Remaster. You'd think he learned not to do this when someone can figure out a way around your security measures. Actually, did Starline ever figure out if Mimic accessed his files? Whether he did or not, I'd imagine he would beef up security for this important project. Joking aside, the vlog serves the purpose of exposition. Starline has observed what he dubs the Sonic Cycle. Dr. Eggman has a world-changing plan, then Sonic and company arrive to stop him, the populace rebuilds, and life goes back to normal. Rinse and repeat. Operation Remaster will break this cycle by first removing Eggman from the equation. Starline still respects the Doc on some level, but believes he's limited by his Sonic obsession. Starline aims to be better than Eggman. The next part of Operation Remaster is to replace the heroes the people depend on. Yeah, he wants to control the hero versus villain dynamic in order to change the world. The first of these new heroes is based on Sonic, except it's a Teneric, green, and female. Rather than have a Metal Sonic-like machine, Starline wanted Surge to have the same attitude and roguish charm as our blue hero, but hopefully kept on a leash. She's currently testing her skills on some badniks, backed up by creation number 2, based on miles tails per hour, Kit Tsunami. Ah ha ha ha, clever wordplay there, Ian. The two use their skills to complete the course in record time. Or rather, Surge completes the course. Kit arrived late because he needed to recharge his water pack. Starline wants to do some field tests before they take on the main mission, but the impatient Surge believes she is ready for the big stuff now. She goes as far as threatening Starline to force him to approve the mission. Starline regains control of the situation by hypnotizing her to sleep, and making Kit forget he saw that. When they come to, Starline lied to them about blacking out due to overexertion. His plan for the moment is to get rid of Sonic's support group, and it just so happens some of them are heading off to a camping trip. It would be a shame if they were to die in an accident from, say, a forest fire? That is Surge and Kit's first task out in the field. A few days later, he sends the two to sow chaos in Central City without getting caught. Kit wants to go underground and manipulate the wiring to throw the traffic lights and power grids into disarray. Surge prefers the direct approach as she speeds along the road, causing traffic accidents. Meanwhile, Starline's at Tails' lab because he wants to cover his tracks. He's worried that if Tails were to analyze Bell's coding and find something similar in Surge and Kit, he could develop countermeasures. Starline wants to destroy all potential progress, if he can enter the lab. Tails has reinforced it greatly ever since the Zombot outbreak. Surge and Kit arrive, and the latter's hydrocoils cannot penetrate the door. Smashing it open is not an option because they're trying to be stealthy. It doesn't matter because they've ran out of time. That's not the only setback. Major spoiler warning for Trial by Fire. Starline reads the girls not only survived the forest fire, but saved all the campers as well. This prompts another clash between Surge, who prefers the direct approach, and Starline, who insists on stealth and secrecy. He presents the final test, getting rid of Dr. Eggman, and to do so, they need to cut off his support. As he explains the plan to strike a remote base, Surge has had enough. She wants to go after Sonic now. Starline asks what if the Hedgehog is not alone. Surge says it's no problem, Kit can handle them, though Kit being hesitant causes Surge to doubt her partner's abilities. This leads to them asking, do they really want to destroy Sonic? They never really met the guy, and have no strong motivation besides what Starline programmed into them. And it seems that programming is a bit faulty. Starline hypnotizes them into unconsciousness again, only they're developing a resistance to it. The coding he stole from Bell, and modified to fit their personalities, is not producing the desired results. Starline decides to push forward, hoping the personalities will stable once they start fulfilling their primary directives. He just needs to handle them more carefully. After they reactivate, Starline fabricates this story. They glitched due to a heated argument which overloaded their upgrades. Kit caught Surge before going offline himself. It's to get the two to like each other again. And the argument itself is Starline trying to push ahead to complete the main mission, and Surge wanting to do one more field test. Surge and Kit buy this, and part 1 ends with Starline repeating his plan to infiltrate one of Eggman's remote bases. On the day this issue was released, Ian Flynn tweeted that the story fulfilled the desire of getting the glitched trio out there. That is, these glitched characters from the 2D Sonic games. We'll get to Surge and Kit in a moment, as they are definitely glitched. But lumping Starline in here is interesting, but also not surprising. I pointed out in the past that he reminded me of Dr. Finitivis from the Archie comics. I'm also getting Dr. Finitivis vibes from this guy, Finitivis being a creepy albino echidna scientist from the Archie comics who has chaos powers. Finitivis, along with Dr. Zachary of the Fleetway comics, were based off the Echidna glitch from Knuckles Chaotix. And now it's more or less confirmed that Starline was also based on Echidna. Only this time they can't use an Echidna since IDW Sonic is more in tune with the games than in past series. Meaning, no new Echidnas outside of Knuckles and Tikal. So might as well use another egg-laying mammal. Now, I wouldn't say Starline is glitched. He's more flawed, and we see it in this issue's story. Starline learns the hard way why Eggman prefers robotic knockoffs with simple, obedient personalities. And even Eggman installed safeguards in Metal Sonic after the Sonic Heroes incident. And there are these guys that turned against him for various reasons. Okay, Eggman doesn't have a perfect record when it comes to loyalty from his robots. The point is, if Eggman wanted to, he could reprogram the robots so that they'll be 100% under his control. That's the flaw with Starline. He tends to underestimate situations, especially ones he tries to control. In this case, using biomechanical beings with complex personalities in an attempt to break the Sonic cycle. Hey, at least he's aware of the world he lives in and wants to liberate it from playing the same game over and over. And he has achieved smaller victories in preparation for this massive plan, some of them by the skin of his teeth. This is why he's testing Surge and Kit. He doesn't want his creations to break down at inopportune moments, thereby ruining his entire plan. I know he wants to be better than Eggman, but it wouldn't have hurt to program some safeguards in his creations, especially since they're becoming immune to hypnosis. He was so excited about acquiring Bell's coding for his creations and implementing them right away that he didn't have time to properly study it. Now he has to deal with their flaws and hopes things will eventually sort themselves out. Let's switch over to our two new characters. Thanks to the behind the scenes TikTok video, I learned that Ian Flynn had these two characters in the pipeline before the IDW Sonic series even came to be. Does this mean they could have been part of the Archie continuity had it not been cancelled? Who knows at this point. Surge the Teneric. First of all, we have our first female villain in the series. In case you haven't noticed, most, if not all, the original villainous characters in the IDW series were male, and all the heroic ones were female. Hey, Starline broke at least one kind of cycle. Surge takes inspiration from the Ashura the Hedgehog glitch from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 16-bit, especially in the facial area. Her being a Teneric is, I guess, a nod to how often that species is compared to hedgehogs. They may look similar, but there are noticeable differences. This is not the first time a Teneric has appeared in Sonic comics. In the Archie Sonic spin-off Sonic Universe, there was a Silver the Hedgehog story arc that featured a character called Gold the Teneric, who had her own special powers. Which brings us to Surge's abilities. Starline wanted her to have an additional jolt compared to Sonic, to be as fast as lightning, thus the electrical powers. And it would explain her name. And finally, her look and attitude is an extreme version of Sonic, with none of the heart and compassion of our hero. Her punk aesthetic and sharp teeth sell this. In some way, it's kinda like having Scourge the Hedgehog back in mainstream comics. For those unaware, Scourge was a character in the Archie Sonic comics. He was an evil alternate universe version of Sonic that turned green after a botched super transformation using the Master Emerald and becoming a more darker, sicker version of our hero. I'm aware of the name similarities between these two characters. In fact, as I was recording this script, I almost said Scourge when I meant to say Surge. Anyway, there was a whole legal mess involving the character Scourge, since Ken Penders created the evil Sonic, and Ian Flynn transformed the character into Scourge. But ultimately, Ken got the character, and that's all I'll say about that. Kit the Fennec is based off the Blue Knuckles glitch from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. The big floppy ears and hair are reminiscent of dreadlocks, and the shoes are based off of Knuckles' Lego shoes. Blue Knuckles' connection to Tails in the game comes in the form of the act completion, where he's referred to as Tails. As I briefly touched upon in the summary, Kit's full name, Kitsunami, is a combination of the word Kitsune, the name of the multi-tailed foxes of Japanese folklore, and tsunami, a series of waves in a body of water. Kit's primary ability is a water pack that utilizes water tentacles, giving him some additional tails, as it were. Kit being a Fennec makes sense because Fennecs are a type of fox, and Starline more than likely modified the fur he stole from Tails. Like the Surge Gold example mentioned earlier, Kit is not the only Fennec that appeared in the Sonic comics. In the main Archie series, post-reboot, There's a character called Sonar the Fennec, and she was part of a trio of freedom fighters she formed with Spike the Porcupine and Trevor Burrow the Mole. This formation was deliberate both in and out of universe, as the trio were fans of Sonic, and it's clear which characters were emulating who. Starline seemingly gave Kit a timid personality, perhaps to counterbalance Surge's extreme personality. That is what Starline was going for. I hope Starline was emulating Tails' personality at the time of Sonic Adventure 1, and not Sonic Forces. Some quick things before I wrap this up. Just as I speculated in my issue 46 review, we got a brief glimpse of the Trial by Fire arc from Surge and Kit's point of view, though no cameo from Ash or Belle as the two started the forest fire. When Surge is speeding through Central City, there's a shot of this character right here. This is Ian Jr., a Sonic Forces avatar character created by Ian Muchler. He's a storyboard artist that contributed to Sonic Mania Adventures and Sonic Team Racing Online. And then there's Starline commenting on Tails' house, relating to what a number of people, myself included, pointed out. Geniuses using symbols to display their egos. Geniuses have big enough egos to build structures in their likenesses. While it feels like nothing is happening plot-wise, the big strengths in this issue are the character interactions between the Glitch Trio and the great-looking art. And seeing this as part of the overall build-up to issue 50, I think the story can take its time a bit. Again, Starline must make sure his creations are ready enough for his world-changing plan. When we return to this miniseries, we'll see how these three plan to get rid of the main villain of the franchise. I'll see you then. Starline's just jealous because Tails and Eggman have instant brand recognition based on their looks, while his brand makes it look like you're visiting the dentist's office. Yeah, I made a similar joke in an earlier video, but you can't deny what that symbol looks like. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Imposter Syndrome Issue 2. Before I continue, I'll be placing a spoiler warning here. If you're joining us for the first time, or need a quick reminder, the Imposter Syndrome Miniseries is part of the overall Road to Issue 50 saga, and the first issue gave us a proper introduction to characters that center around this whole thing. Dr. Starline's creations, Surge the Tenric, and Kitsunami Kit the Fennec. Starline's ultimate endgame is to break the cycle of Sonic and his friends fighting and defeating Eggman, and Surge and Kit are the key to this. Under his orders, they caused a forest fire in an attempt to kill some of Sonic's friends. The main book's Trial by Fire arc goes deeper into the forest fire, and they were responsible for Central City's traffic issues, which will be the subject of a future arc. Despite all these tests and assignments, Starline has had some issues keeping them fully under his control. Nevertheless, he's pushing forward with his plans, and he has an eye on one of Eggman's bases. The story begins with another exposition log entry. By the way, nice consistency with the file name matching the issue number. Starline recounts the time he took over Egg Base Sigma. He used an override program in conjunction with exploiting backdoors into the Eggnet. For his ultimate plan to work, he has to directly override all of Eggman's controls, and Egg Base Alpha will serve as the final test. Outside of the base, Starline lays out the details. They will sneak in through the south, and Starline will upload the command program from the western control tower. Surge and Kit will head to the Eastern Communications Tower to prevent any alerts from reaching the Eggnet. They're going to ignore the North Tower because it's Eggman's exclusive gaming tower, separate from the Eggnet. Hold on a moment. What's that line you're saying there, Starline? The doctor's ping is immaculate? Oh dear.
Pingers!
For the record, Ian did not intend for ping to refer to the infamous meme. Perhaps it was a subconscious thing? Anyway, Surge isn't happy that she's babysitting her support unit, but Starline reminds her it's what she wanted. Surge agrees. However, she has some doubts. They begin the mission, and on their way to the Eastern Tower, Surge and Kit spot a Badnik patrol. Robot ants if you're curious. Despite Kit's objections, Surge destroys them. By her logic, badniks cannot raise the alarms if they're scrap. She then tells Kit that she'll be doing things her way and not Starline's, and he's supposed to follow her. With that out of the way, they continue towards the tower. Meanwhile, Starline infiltrates the western tower thanks to his override program. And as he heads towards to where he needs to do his thing, he decides to make a quick detour when he spots the Egg Cave from the 2020 annual. He reminisces about his previous visit to this place, back when he was still a blind Eggman fanboy. Now that his eyes have been opened, he will prove to Eggman that his methods are superior. He hopes Eggman will see the error of his ways, and Starline will accept him back before they rule the world. Back to Surge and Kit, the latter wants to disable the tower, while the former wants to destroy it. Surge's method will definitely alert Eggman, but she believes she can take him. The arrival of an egg breaker makes the decision for them. Surge distracts the machine, and Kit begins taking care of the tower. Surge soon learns that dealing with a boss-level threat isn't as simple and exciting as it sounds. She keeps fighting it because, according to her, Sonic would run rings around this thing. That may be true, but you may want to consult another hedgehog that actually fought an egg breaker. Kit finishes disabling the tower and hurries to join Surge, cause you know what they say, the more the merrier. Or not, as Kit's arrival distracts Surge long enough for the egg breaker to crush her with its spike ball. This really pisses off Kit. Using his water tentacles, he tosses the spike ball back at the breaker. Kit goes to check on Surge, and besides some clothing damage, she's fine. This puzzles them both. The mystery will have to wait as the egg breaker charges once more. Surge quickly deals with it, but this alerted a whole bunch of robot ant badniks. Though instead of attacking, the machines just applaud them. Which means Starline has successfully taken over Egg Base Alpha, and he wants to see the two right away. He congratulates them on a job well done, though he's worried about a roughed up Surge. She says she was a little careless, and she gives Kit credit for the assistance. She then congratulates Starline on his victory, in her own way. Starline has some cleanup to do and dismisses the two. We soon learn that Surge's jovial attitude towards Starline was just an act. When Surge and Kit are alone, they start discussing Surge's survival. Kit wanted to tell Starline about it, but Surge wants to keep this hush-hush. She wants to know what Starline did to them because she is unsure of her own thoughts. They are determined to get to the bottom of this, and the best place to start is his recordings. Afterwards, they'll deal with Starline. Let's get this one out of the way first. I have to say, I was surprised to see the Egg Cave again. Originally, I thought it was on the Face ship, which was destroyed near the end of the Metal Virus saga. I guess Eggman took the time to visit Egg Base Alpha at the early stages of the Zombie invasion, and Starline just happened to snoop in.
Snooping as usual, I see.
Speaking of, Starline better enjoy this victory because soon it looks like things are going to fall apart for him. And I honestly thought the gaming tower would screw them over in the end, though that may still happen. Once again, we're reminded that despite all of those preparations, he underestimates those he tries to manipulate, and a number of times, it's his fault. In this case, by not taking the time to properly study Bell's coding, his creations are on the verge of mutiny. That's because he was in a hurry, and you can chalk that up to his obsession with Eggman. Sure, he no longer worships the ground he walks on, but now he wants to teach him a lesson about planning, and he wants Eggman to admit his methods were wrong. Only then will Starline welcome him back, and they will rule together. I assume Eggman will be Starline's subordinate. That's the thing with Starline. He wants to be better than Eggman, yet, like his former idol, he's obsessed over a certain individual. That may ultimately be his undoing. Moving on to Surge and Kit, the issue dives more into the relationship between the two, which is a twisted version of the Sonic and Tails dynamic that Starline programmed into them. You know, it's almost like he saw a video simulation of Sonic running, and Tails following without question. Then he just filled in the gaps himself based on his limited knowledge of the heroes. At this moment, Surge and Kit are fascinating to me because they're still trying to figure out who they are, while still being guided by their programming. The question we should ask now is, will this false bond actually develop into an actual bond beyond their programming? This is because at the end of this issue, the two seem willing to work together to find out more about their origins. What might have helped was their struggle against the Eggbreaker. Kit's loyalty, whether artificial or not, is strong enough that when push comes to shove, he'll ditch his timid doormat personality and get nasty if it means saving his comrade. Surge surviving what should have been a killing blow made her question her very existence, and she wants to have Kit join her in finding the answers. The way she does this may seem a little heartwarming. Like I said last time, she has Sonic's attitude minus the compassion, and you can definitely see it with the "you're not the boss of me" attitude. Near the end though, she may be showing concern for someone she thinks exists only to serve her. Then again, Surge might be manipulating Kit into helping her, since he can hack into things. And wouldn't you know it? Soon they'll be hacking into Starline's logs. Jeez, first Mimic and now Surge and Kit? Again, in his defense, Starline never found out about Mimic accessing his stuff by changing into him. What led Surge and Kit into going behind Starline's back is again Surge's survival and their puzzlement over it. And I was a little surprised, though I shouldn't be, by this revelation. They don't know they're machines. They think they're living beings with some enhancements. It's a classic sci-fi trope, where a person thinks they are alive, but instead, they're a robot. And often, when they find out they are a robot, it does not go well. Of course, I'm assuming they're machines based on past observations. Because if they were indeed living people that got modified, then Starline's even sicker than we thought. Plus, it would be a nod to the Dragon Ball franchise, which the Sonic franchise has borrowed elements from in the past. Well, with Imposter Syndrome number 3 coming out in March, we'll get some answers about Surge and Kit's origins. And I have a feeling things are going to get ugly. I'll see you then. That right there is the look of someone who's seen some things. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic Imposter Syndrome Issue 3. Spoilers from this point forward. We're entering the second half of the miniseries, and so far, Dr. Starline's plan to break the Sonic cycle is going relatively smoothly. He took over another Eggman base with the help of his creations, Surge and Kit. He was so happy about this victory that he failed to notice something's off about the two. During the operation, Surge survived an attack that should have killed her. This led them to wonder, what exactly did Starline do to them? So now they're off to hack into his logs to get the answers. We begin with yet another log entry, though instead of the calm, collected Starline, we get one that's completely snapped. The file name clues us in on when it was made, S0N-1C0-25B, Sonic 25. The issue Eggman fired Starline in the most humiliating way possible. Starline did not take that well. At that point in time, he was working on a new revolutionary prototype machine frame that he wanted to show Eggman. But after being tossed aside like a rag doll, he hoped that the eventual final product will run circles around Metal Sonic. He even goes as far as calling out the robotic doppelganger. He's that petty. We move to a new log entry labeled B40-GU7-04B. Placing this after the events of Bad Guys Issue 4. Starline reflected on the events of that miniseries and realized he was being short-sighted. In order to control a chaotic and unpredictable world, he would need the will and ingenuity of living beings rather than orderly machines. So rather than putting animals in machines, he went and did the opposite while proudly displaying Surge and Kit in the tubes. Nice way of censoring things, by the way, using Starline's hands to cover up their bare feet. Makes you wonder if they have actual feet with toes, or the blobby Sega type. Speaking of Surge and Kit, they are indeed watching these files to learn more about themselves. This brings us to our third data log, P05-757-H44. Translation: Post STH44, meaning this log was made after issue 44. Starline had gathered the necessary ingredients to emulate the abilities of the Speedy Hedgehogs and Tails. Keyword: emulate, not full-on replication. To compensate, Kit would need external support, and Surge needed electromagnetic propulsion. Yes, we see how Starline got biodata from Sonic and Shadow. He accessed the Neo Metal Sonic files. Finally, Starline mentioned the acquisition of Bell's coding, and using that as a means to control his enforcers. Oh, it gets better. Not only did he bring up the hypnosis failsafe, he mentioned that he was going to use Bell's coding to override any existing personalities in order to make them who and what he wants them to be. We see this in action as Starline subjugated Surge and Kit to a series of hypnosis until, after multiple sessions, he got the personalities he wanted. We move on to a fourth log entry, PR3-1MP-SYM. Pre-Imposter Syndrome. It featured Surge and Kit going through a training montage. Starline also revealed the reason the two can take a lot of punishment. He repurposed the resilience of the Metal Virus, aka the Zombot's invulnerability, into safe cellular upgrades to complement their cybernetics. While it helps them physically, psychologically is a whole nother story. Going through all that brutal training has really messed with the two's head, and Starline berating them does not help. Of course, every time they break down, Starline resets them. Though every time he does this, their memories aren't completely erased as they were learning and improving. Eventually, they would reach the moment where we first saw them at the beginning of this miniseries. To say Surge and Kit are upset by this is an understatement. After seeing enough footage, Surge wants Kit to find out who they were before Starline got a hold of them. And there's nothing. Starline, walking in on them, says their past is irrelevant. That's not good enough for Surge. Before Starline hypnotizes her into submission again, Surge orders Kit to attack. Despite Starline trying to evade and counterattack with his Tricore, he made his enforcers a little too well, and soon he's disarmed and captured. He tries pleading with them using the old "I know your past" shtick, but Surge will have none of it and knocks him out with the Hypno Glove. Utterly broken by the revelations, Surge wants to now burn everything and everyone to the ground, because according to her, if they don't have a past, the world does not get a future. Kit's on board with the idea, and he suggests they follow Starline's plan up to a certain point. Then, at the right moment, break off and take out everyone: Sonic, Eggman, and Starline. Later, Starline wakes up, and Surge explains how he's fallen asleep while monologuing on how she and Kit were made as part of a pre-mission prep. Due to a combination of the post-hypnotic haze and Surge and Kit selling the act, Starline buys it. He starts laying out the plan on how they'll infiltrate Eggman's capital city and upload the override program. This will get the heroes' attention, and they'll head off to investigate. When the moment comes, he wants Surge and Kit to take out their targets, not realizing he's now one as well. Well, it's official. Starline pulled a Dr. Gero in order to achieve his goals. And similar to Android 17 and 18, Surge and Kit rebelled. Though thankfully for Starline, his head did not end up being squashed like a grape. For now. At least he got a taste of his own medicine. Still, Starline has crossed the line, taking two random individuals and altering them into knockoffs of the main heroes rather than create his own from scratch. That's approaching Archie Eggman levels of villainy, and he did some nasty things pre and post reboot. It makes you wonder if Starline would have preferred that version of his idol. In some ways, Starline is worse than Archie Eggman. I think it's because we actually saw the horrific transformation from who Surge and Kit possibly were to who they are now. I admit, Archie Eggman has done some cruel things like trick a pair of siblings to become his cyborg egg bosses in exchange for curing one of them of a disease, and later admitted to the healthy one that he didn't, but at least we knew some history regarding the Pronghorn sisters. Here, we know nothing about Surge and Kit's past. Surge even speculated on who they might have been before. One thing is certain, whoever they were in the past, the two are close enough species-wise to the main heroes, and that's good enough for Starline. There's also the added trauma of all that training, and the mistreatment of the two if they did not live up to Starline's expectations. Even Eggman, at least IDW Eggman, treats Metal Sonic better than this, if you ignore the Sonic Heroes incident. No wonder Surge and Kit snapped when they saw the footage. Once again, Starline's plan is in jeopardy because he had to make detailed logs that anyone can hack into. I know I keep saying this, but this time, thanks to his inability to shut his beak, the cost may be high. Surge was hit the hardest by the revelation. To learn that her punkish attitude was just a construct of a madman in order to take down the main hero? It seems she lost a lot of her cockiness and is now confused, scared, and sad. Who can blame her? She and Kit had a past that she wanted to know about. But Starline did not include that information in the files because, as he said, it's irrelevant. I do hope Ian and or Evan answers this question down the line because I too want to know where they came from. Kit's attitude also changed thanks to the revelation. After they planned to betray Starline, he seems more calm and collected, while giving off a cold vibe. Even his attacks seem deadlier compared to last issue. I think it's because here, his eyes are lit up, like they're laser focused on their target. At this point, I'm of two minds about Surge and Kit. I sympathize with their situation of not knowing who they were and the trauma they went through. And good for them for betraying Starline. It's the burn everything plan that makes me raise an eyebrow a bit. It's understandable why they're doing this. Though I now hope the real heroes can thwart their scheme. Just a couple more random bits. Surge mentioning Gaia is a nod to the Sonic Unleashed deities, though I'm still wondering how that would work, since as far as I know, since the Two Worlds thing is still at play, and the events of that game took place on the human world. Then we have Surge reenacting the Peter Griffin on the ground meme. And finally, and I didn't know this until this issue, but Surge's accessories double as the electromagnetic propulsion Starline mentioned. Probably should have seen it earlier since I saw electricity flowing through them. Issue 3 provided many answers by calling back to previous events while also setting up the direction for what's to come. The final issue will have the three take on Eggman himself, and we'll see how that goes down when it comes out in May. April will be dedicated to issue 49, with Sonic, Tails, and Bell investigating an odd signal from the Badniks, the very thing Starline was counting on. It's all starting to come together, and I'll see you on the next leg of the overall journey. Surge making some snarky commentary while watching some footage. This thing will never catch on. Welcome everyone to the final issue of IDW Sonic Imposter Syndrome. And if you're going by release order, this is the final stop before we reach issue 50. Issue 49 had already come out by this point. Before I continue, there will be spoilers from this point forward. Last time, if you recall, Surge and Kit learned some horrific truths about themselves and successfully rebelled against Starline. They planned to burn the planet to the ground, starting with Sonic, Tails, and both Doctors Eggman and Starline. In order to do so, they tricked Starline into thinking everything is A-OK and have him continue his plan to take over Eggman's empire. And when the right moment comes, they'll make their own move. Time to wrap up this mini-series. We start with not another log entry, believe me we had plenty of those last time, but a flashback to when the metal virus plague was just starting. Starline asks Eggman why he builds theme parks instead of using those resources elsewhere. Eggman's response is, he doesn't want the world as is, he makes it what he wants it to be. And if he wants to build, say, Eggman Land to vanquish his enemies, so be it. Those words, make the world what you want it to be, left an impression on Starline. So much so that after everything that's happened to him since, he still follows this idea. In the present, Starline, Surge, and Kit are ready to infiltrate Eggman's city of Eggtropolis. The former still unaware the latter two want him dead by the end of all this. They head inside and start trashing any bandit that gets in their way. After the three gang up and wreck an egg hammer, Starline proceeds into the building where he will be uploading his override program, leaving Surge and Kit to keep Eggman distracted. Despite their plan to backstab Starline, Surge enjoys smashing bandits to bits. Meanwhile, Orbot and Cubot return from their little vacation to Eggman's side. Oh right, that happened. Here's a reminder. At the end of Test Run, the two were tossed aside into the ocean, just to get away from Eggman for a while. They must have spent their entire time there, because they're still wet when they meet up with Eggman again. That or Eggman built them with the ability to sweat, to which I have to say, why? Orbot explains their disappearance as being on reconnaissance. Yeah, that's it. Eggman doesn't pry further into this as he has bigger concerns at the moment. He's getting reports that Sonic and Tails are wrecking the place. Only the visuals show Surge and Kit instead. Confused as he is, ultimately, Eggman sees two troublemakers and has the perfect solution. Send in one of the original and most notorious of the Sonic knockoffs, Metal Sonic. Surge welcomes this challenge, but soon regrets taking on something that has experience fighting speedy devils. If this was a one-on-one fight, Surge might lose. However, things turn around when Kit enters the fray, and eventually he traps Metal Sonic in a water bubble. When combined with a zap from Surge, the machine goes offline. As a final act of humiliation, Surge knocks it over with a tap, while channeling her inner shadow.
You're comparing yourself to me? Huh? You're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words!
To be fair, she does have a bit of his bio data. Things are about to get worse for Eggman as he discovers Starline's hacking into his system, and it's too late for him to do anything about it. Starline finished the upload and is now broadcasting the override program throughout the city and beyond. Eggman flees his mind-controlled forces, including Orbot and Cubot, by going down an escape hatch. Starline is basking in this victory, claiming Eggman's throne, and for the moment, his empire. He orders Orbot to call the bandits to him, hoping that this will get Sonic's attention. If you've read, or at the very least seen my review of issue 49, that's exactly what happens. And he's bringing along Tails and Bell. Starline sees Cubot stuck in compact mode, courtesy of Eggman, and Orbot informs Starline that their old boss has retreated to the Memorial Garage, where at the moment, he's trying to select which of his old machines to use. And all those mechs have appeared in past games. There's the Egg Robo from Sonic Lost World. It's hard to tell due to the coloring, but it is indeed the final boss of that game. I double checked. Next to it is the Egg Emperor from Sonic Heroes, which technically Eggman never used, unless the 3DS version of Sonic Generations happened in this continuity. Then there's the Egg Dragoon, the most recurring mech of the 3D games, but that's nothing compared to the one behind Eggman, the most recurring and iconic mech of the entire franchise, the Death Egg Robot. Eggman chooses a machine and activates it in offline mode so it wouldn't be affected by Starline's control signal. Outside, Surge and Kit watch the bandits pour in before planning on how to deal with Sonic. If he comes along with Tails, which is definitely happening, Surge will take care of the former and Kit the latter. Once the heroes and the doctors are dealt with, they'll be free to travel from city to city and destroy everything and everyone that's ever idolized them. And so, we end the issue and the miniseries. As Gandalf said in Return of the King, the board is set, the pieces are moving. Starline's now in control of the Empire and is baiting Sonic and whoever's with him to come to the city. Eggman is preparing a counterattack, and Surge and Kit are readying themselves to take them all out. Based on this issue, Starline's control signal seems to affect not just Badniks, but Orbot and Cubot, and according to Starline himself, any mech that Eggman links up to the system, though Eggman found a workaround in the last case. At the stinger of my issue 49 review, I wondered if a certain treacherous robot would be affected by the signal. Here it is in case you missed it. Hold on, this just came to me. Would Omega be vulnerable to the control signal like Bell, or would he be exempt due to him being an E-Series robot? One of my viewers, Michael Bounds, forwarded the question to one of Ian Flynn's Q&A live streams, where we get the following response.
Presumably, however, when Tails helped reconstruct him, you would think he would have put some kind of failsafe in there.
Maybe.
I mean, even when Eggman had him reintegrated into his super mecha, Omega still had a degree of free will. He did not like the fact that he was being used. So there may be just something hard-coded into him that allows him to be very independent.
Yes.
I know they tried to answer this the best they could, and not to disrespect them, but personally, I think Omega would be vulnerable despite his rebellious nature. He is made of Eggman tech like the Badniks, Orbine Cubot, and even Bell, though I don't know about Gemerald since he was based off the Gizoid Emerald. Anyway, the reason I'm pro-Omega brainwashed is because Orbine Cubot, while loyal to Eggman, decided to blow him off for some R&R. I don't blame them one bit for doing so. They said Tails could have disabled the ability to receive signals when he repaired Omega. Perhaps this is true, but as Chow Races and Badnik bases revealed, while he may be a genius, he is not an instant expert when it comes to certain technologies. In reality, when Ian and Evan planned out this saga, they more than likely forgot to factor in Omega with regards to the mind control signal. That's my theory anyway. Something tells me it'll be addressed in a later issue. It's probably going to be a case of Omega was mind controlled, but the events would be resolved so fast, he would not have a chance to make it to Eggtropolis. I apologize for this tangent, but what else do I have to say about this issue? I mean, we're definitely going back to the action, and to be fair, the rest of the miniseries was building up to this moment. While it's not bad, nothing can top the emotional impact of the previous issue. Though I do like Eggman's reaction to Surge and Kid double-teaming Metal Sonic in order to defeat the machine. It shows that deep down, he has some reluctant respect for Sonic, and none for these knockoffs. I still like Surge and Kid though. They may have been forged through mad science, but they're starting to make their new identities their own. I'm also aware that it was Sega that wanted them to be XPs of Android 17 and 18. Ian had another idea for their origins, but in the end, whether you like it or not, Sega is the boss. Who knows if they, or we, will ever learn of their true origins. Regardless, soon they'll be facing off against the individuals they're based off of. As for Imposter Syndrome overall, I enjoyed it. It's the culmination of what's been hinting at throughout the series so far, and gives us a chance to get to know our two new villains. It also shows how low Starline will go in order to follow his former mentor's philosophy of making the world as you see fit. Granted, karma came to bite him in issue 3, and now he doesn't know his pawns are the ones guiding him. Ironic, considering his speech to Orbot about preparation and control. I have a feeling it might get worse for Starline. I said this elsewhere, but I did not mind the idea of the miniseries release schedule alternating with the main series. It helps build the tension from different points of view. The main problem is, they released each issue a month, which makes things drag a bit, especially if you factor in delays. Once again, I understand if they don't want to risk revealing things too soon, but if they were to do this again in the future, maybe plan things out so that we can have 2 issues a month. I'm just saying, the pacing needs work. It doesn't matter now because we have reached the end of the road, and next up is the big one, issue 50, where everything comes together in a massive showdown. So how will everyone fare after all this? Well, I can tell you for certain, the gang characters will be fine because they're gang characters. That leaves the Imposter Trio and Bell. Surge and Kit work well together as a team, but now they have to fight one-on-one with the originals. I don't know about Tails vs. Kit, but if the Surge vs. Metal Sonic fight is any indication, she might have trouble going against the one who scraps Metal Sonic on a regular basis. What kind of mech will Eggman use to regain control of the situation? One of the classic ones, or something we have not seen before? Either way, Starline now has a third person gunning for his head. And how will Bell factor into all this? Personally, I think she might be the spanner in the works. I do know that as of this writing, there are covers and solicitations for issue 51 out there, and if they are accurate, then they might have given the whole thing away. As a courtesy, I am not going to show them here, but if you want to find them, you can easily look them up online. And with that, I'll see you in issue 50. Once again, Cubot gets the shaft. At least being stuck in compact mode is better than being a literal head on Orbot's shoulders. After many months, multiple story arcs, a miniseries, a collaboration between two writers, and some delays, we have at last arrived at IDW Sonic issue 50. For those wondering, after all that build-up, which admittedly could have been paced better, how are they going to resolve all this in a mere 20 pages? Fear not, this is an extended issue, which makes sense given that this is a comic milestone. Now before I go on, I will warn you that there will be major spoilers from this point forward. If this is your first time visiting this channel, or if you haven't seen any of my videos in a long time, first of all, welcome and welcome back, and second, since this is the payoff issue, I will be approaching this review as if viewers have seen/read all of the prior build-up issues. If you don't want to feel lost, I'd recommend looking at issues 45 through 49 and the 4-part Imposter Syndrome Miniseries before continuing. For everyone else, instead of recapping everything up to this point, I will introduce all of the main players of this issue. If you want to go ahead and skip straight to the summary, here's the time code. First of all, we have the trio of Sonic the Hedgehog, Miles Tails Per Hour, and Belle the Tinkerer. They're heading for the city of Eggtropolis to investigate a mysterious signal that's calling all the Badniks to this one location. That's because it's the work of former Eggman assistant Dr. Starline, who successfully took over the Eggman Empire and is broadcasting the signal specifically to lure in Sonic and Tails for his trap. This brings us to our next players, Dr. Starline's creations, Surge the Tenric, and Kit the Fennec, made specifically to counter our heroes. Unfortunately for Starline, after these two learned more about their horrific creations in Imposter Syndrome issue 3, they rebelled. They successfully tricked Starline into thinking they're still loyal to him, and are using the opportunity to wipe him out, along with Sonic, Tails, and our final player, Dr. Eggman. He escaped the takeover, and is powering up one of his old mechs for his own counterattack against Starline. This ought to be fun. Let's get started. Sonic, Tails, and Belle enter the city, with Sonic asking Belle if she wants to still back out given what happened to her last issue. Belle, though, is determined to see this through to the end. Meanwhile, in the control tower, Orbot informs Starline about the trio's arrival, and Starline orders him to tell Surge and Kit to engage them immediately. Starline then takes the time to revel in this victory, and he believes that he'll soon force Eggman by his side. He seems very excited about this prospect. Well, that dream's dashed as Eggman arrives in his chosen mech, the Egg Emperor. How very fitting given the circumstances. Starline activates his tricorn to fight back, all while stating that he didn't want to embarrass Eggman like this. Sonic, Tails, and Belle briefly look at the fight from a distance, until Belle spots something below. Metal Sonic, currently offline thanks to what Surge and Kit did to him in Imposter Syndrome 4. Belle wants to help him, and Sonic says, okay. Tails, though, reminds him about the last time they helped Metal Sonic, and how it didn't work out. At this point, I'm still not sure if they know that Metal Sonic was the linchpin in restoring Eggman back to his former self, after Starline mind-screwed him. But for them, going back to Eggman in general was bad enough for the heroes. Although, Metal did help out Sonic during the climax of the Metal Virus arc, and Sonic probably had that in mind when he decided to let Belle work on him. It ultimately doesn't matter as the two have bigger things to worry about. Sonic is suddenly whisked away with only electricity left behind, and Tails is dragged away by water tentacles. This leaves Belle alone with the deactivated Metal Sonic at the mercy of the brainwashed Badniks. And one of them is a slicer too. Joy. At this point, the comic will jump between the different fights between the originals and the imposters. For simplicity's sake, I will summarize each fight one at a time. Let's start with Eggman vs. Starline, since it was already in progress. As he's hunting down Starline, Eggman reveals that he's figured out who was really responsible for the raids on his facilities back in the Bad Guys miniseries. Starline realizes that his Tricore is not enough, and decides to fight fire with fire. He guesses where Eggman's mech hangar is located, and makes a beeline for it. So which mech did he choose? The Egg Robo from Sonic Lost World. Time for a mech battle. During this, Starline insists that his plan can work and that they can rule the world together. Former or not, if Starline really understands his idol, then he should realize he doesn't share power. All he's really doing right now is wasting Eggman's time and wrecking his stuff. After Eggman trashes the Egg Robo, Starline utilizes the one attack capable of destroying the Egg Emperor, a Tricore Blast. Oh, but Eggman was counting on this. While the Egg Emperor is destroyed again, the process depleted the Tricore of all its power. Starline attempts to hypnotize Eggman, but Eggman counters by pulling his goggles over his eyes. Starline's shocked that Eggman actually paid attention in the past about all the goodies his glove can do. In one final desperate move, Starline tries striking Eggman with his heel spurs. Eggman, however, grabs his leg and slams him to the ground like a rag doll. Yeah, people forget that Eggman can be surprisingly strong. Afterwards, he's confronted by Belle and a reactivated Metal Sonic. Earlier, she managed to find a hiding spot to repair him. In order to block the control signal, she used herself as a router and let the Zeddy Zapper do its thing. Thanks to this connection, he recognized her as his sister and agrees to take her directly to Eggman using the egg net to guide them. Which brings us to this scene. Belle is here to say her final goodbye and vows to help all robots abandoned by Eggman. When Eggman learns how Belle bypassed Starline's control signal while fixing Metal Sonic, he gives her a choice. Join him or return to Sonic and his friends. Belle has already chosen Sonic, and with that, Eggman and Metal Sonic leave. The fight between Eggman and Starline is causing the area to collapse, but Starline is too broken to notice. All that work he's done was for nothing. And that's the last we see of him as debris falls on top of him. Let's move over to Tails vs. Kit. Tails believes this is a mistake, and Kit responds that he was designed to take him out. As Tails dodges the water tentacles, he compliments Kit's control over them and the tech behind it. This leads to Tails wanting to find some common ground between the two, like how not everyone appreciates your gifts, and the right kind of support can help you become a better person. This act of kindness is confusing Kit. Tails recognizes this and hopes to handle the situation carefully. They call a truce and Tails asks what's going on with the Badniks. Kit says it's all Starline's doing. When Tails brings up the time Starline almost kidnapped him back in Chow Races and Badnik bases, and asked if the Doctor hurt him in any way, Kit briefly lists all the things Starline did to him before declaring his hatred of the guy. Tails wants to stop Starline's plan, and it seems Kit's on board with this. Until Tails mentions finding Sonic. This triggers Kit's conditioning. He won't let anyone interfere in the fight between Surge and Sonic, and the two resume chasing each other. Tails can't dodge Kit forever, and he doesn't have to. If Tails' calculations are correct, Kit should run out of water reserves right about now. This gives Tails the opening to shut down the water pack, and inadvertently Kit. Well, that's one way to end a fight. Now for the big event, Sonic vs. Surge. Surge forces Sonic into an abandoned building, and when he asks who she is, Surge gives a long-winded response. Because of Sonic's moral code that won't let him kill his enemies in the past, in a way, she exists because of Sonic. And because the people love it when Sonic does the same thing over and over, Surge tells him she's going to end all of it. Jeez, all Sonic wanted was a name. But don't worry, he eventually got it. And so the two start battling across the room. At the moment, they're evenly matched. Sonic's having a good time. For him, it's been a while since he had this kind of fight. Surge, on the other hand, sees this as a fight to the death. When Sonic gains the high ground, he lectures Surge on how he rolls, which involves seeing the world, living in the moment, and enjoying the thrills that come with adventuring. He wants to give everyone the chance to do the same, even his enemies. Surge actually considers getting on board with Sonic's way of thinking, but she interprets this as the freedom to tear down the world that discarded her. In her twisted logic, if she was a volunteer, her life must have been awful beforehand, and if she was kidnapped, someone would have tried to find her at this point. Now that she's fully committed to the let the world burn methodology, the fight resumes. Surge utilizes her electric tornado move to finish off Sonic, but a simple Sonic spin dash knocks her out of it. She's apparently so winded, she falls over a cliff. As she holds onto a piece of debris over the cliff face, Sonic tries to pull her up. Instead, she gives him a screw you jolt. Debris falls from the top, and while Sonic dodges it, Surge apparently didn't. Sonic returns to the location where they were ambushed, followed shortly by Tails and an unconscious Kit, and then Bell riding a full-bore Badnik from Sonic 4 Episode 2. As they update each other on what's happened, they are interrupted by Eggman on the PA system. Despite the mess Starline and the imposters made, he's still going to be a gracious host to his guests by unleashing a city full of Badniks on them. And thus issue 50 comes to a close. It's not surprising the game characters won their fights. They're game characters. But if you put that aside, the reason the imposters lost this day is because the originals had something they did not: experience. Starline believed Eggman was a fool for not paying attention to his actions and thought he knew better. But he learned the hard way that not only was Eggman paying attention and deducing his actions, he made his own counters. Eggman even stated that the very reason he chose the Egg Emperor was to deprive Starline of his primary weapon, and he was prepared to pull this move ever since Starline raided the core facility. Obviously, both of them were using the events of Sonic Heroes to base their actions on. Yeah, Eggman was locked up through most of those events, but remember, he was still able to guide the Chaotix via walkie-talkie, and thus have knowledge of how things worked during that period. Starline had to look them up after the fact, the same way he looked up info about the Zeti during the Metal Virus arc, and looked how well that worked out for him. And that's only part of the bigger reason for Starline's downfall. He was laser focused on besting Eggman, subduing Eggman, trying to be better than Eggman. But as others have pointed out, even from Eggman himself, his obsession ultimately blinded him to the bigger picture. That's why he keeps losing allies, and that's what originally cost him his warping gem. He'd rather find, in his mind, a better solution than follow along with another Sonic/Eggman Save the World team-up. Now granted, Eggman was focused on beating Sonic and his friends, but to me, after years of back and forth conflict, Eggman's gained a sense of patience before acting on any brand new scheme. Starline, for all his talk of preparation, appropriated some of Eggman's stuff and took his idea of creating knockoffs rather than trying for something completely different. This is because being an Eggman fanboy, from what we've seen, it's all he knows. Even when trying to break out of it, he's always pulled back in. It's only in his supposed final moments that he realized the futility of everything he's worked for. So is this the end of Dr. Starline? It can go either way at this point. All we see is debris collapsing in on where he was. We don't see a body. Sometimes in fiction, that means a person is not dead. Then again, this is an all-ages book, and they want to spare the younger members of the audience the messy details. If this is Starline's last hurrah, it is kind of appropriate to see him at his highest high, then witnessing the crash, and seeing him reduced to a maddening state, reminiscent of Eggman in Archie Sonic issue 200, just before being buried. If he did survive, perhaps he'll finally gain some proper experience. The sad thing is, either way, he'll never know his creations betrayed him. Tails is able to win in two ways using experience. The more obvious method is stalling until Kit runs out of water, then disabling him. It is a testament to the Fox's superior flying and technical skills, as well as outsmarting his opponent. Another win, or at least opening the door to another possible win, is trying to connect with Kit. I believe Tails was genuinely trying to reach out to Kit because he does see a lot of his earlier self in the Fennec. He understands what it's like to be unique and offers to help him. This is very poignant given Tails' backstory of being bullied is brought back into the forefront thanks to recent Sonic media, and that it was his encounter with Sonic that Tails learned that being different isn't so bad. Now he's trying to pass that lesson on to Kit. I mean, let's face it, Kit was in a worse position than Tails. Having his past stolen by Starline and made into a hydro-powered yes-man to Surge is something that cannot be cured overnight. But the door is opened. We'll see where this goes now that Kit's separated from Surge and for the moment is with the heroes. One case where experience might have made things worse was during the Sonic vs. Surge fight. Sonic was nonchalant while fighting Surge because he's been through this song and dance with others who wanted to try to destroy the world in the past. One speedster in particular. To him, he just sees another troubled individual that he hopes can become better. If we were able to hand him a copy of the Imposter Syndrome Miniseries, he'd learn that Surge is not just any troubled individual. She thought she was confident and cocky about her purpose in life, only to learn it was all a lie. She wanted to annihilate the world as a response to what she learned in Imposter Syndrome Issue 3, and thanks to Sonic's words of encouragement, she doubles down on the idea. Hey Sonic, I know you mean well, but don't give helpful advice to green psychotic speedsters. That kind of action gave your Archie counterpart and his friends a massive migraine down the line. And guess what? Major spoiler alert. Later issues not only confirm Surge's survival, she's trying to gain more power in an effort to destroy Sonic and his friends. I respect your convictions to try and reform your enemy, Sonic, and you did have some success, but Surge and others before her had a point. Killing your enemies, or at least incapacitating them so they'll never be a threat again, would have been a better solution in the long run. But hey, he is the hero of the franchise, and the franchise does need conflict to keep going. Hopefully in the future, they can tone down Sonic's merciful shtick. Belle had a smaller role than I expected, but it was still significant. She gained closure by directly confronting Eggman and declaring that she will help all of his discarded robots. Plus, she helped fix her big brother, which inadvertently gave Eggman the means to regain control of his forces. I think that's why he didn't scrap her right then and there. You could argue that there might have been a tiny bit of Tinker left, and that might have spared Belle a terrible fate. Or both. Admittedly, I do like the brief interaction between Metal Sonic and Belle. I just wish we could have seen more between the Metal Destroyer and the Wooden Builder. There are of course the occasional Easter eggs, ranging from lines from other Sonic sources, to the reuse of the final egg elevators, and then there's all the different Badnik types. This panel alone has egg pawns, motobugs, spinners, slicers, caterpillars, crab meats, and 2 different types of buzz bombers. So what do I think of issue 50 as a milestone event? I would say, if you're expecting a game changer like how some Archie milestones changed the status quo, temper your expectations. Now as a climax to a long-going story arc, I think it did the job well. It establishes where certain characters may be going in the future, has a possible poetic end to an established villain, and the game characters get a chance to shine during their fights. Eggman in particular. His conflict with Starline reminded me of a story arc in Sonic Universe where Archie Eggman had to deal with a former lackey who wanted to take over the Empire, only to beat him into submission and imprison him. I don't know what's worse, Snively being imprisoned a broken man, or Starline going bonkers before getting crushed. Back to this issue's fights. I couldn't even begin to describe them during the summary. You'll have to see them for yourselves. So I'm going to give a round of applause to Ian Flynn, who came back to write the story, Adam Bryce Thomas, who drew the whole thing, and the multiple colorists who tried to match the art as best they could. And to briefly touch upon this, the fact that this series made it to issue 50 is amazing. Whatever your thoughts on the overall writing, it's 1,000 times more coherent than the first 50 issues of the main Archie book. To be fair, that series at the time had multiple writers that don't share notes or continuity with one another, compared to the 2 main writers and better forms of communication this series utilizes. The comic's immediate future is looking pretty good right now. You may think I'm being very positive right now, given the current state of the industry, and you're probably right. I'm just following Sonic's advice of living in the moment. The day will come when IDW Sonic will come to an end, but until that day comes, I will enjoy the ride while giving the series a bit of critique. The battle for the Empire may be over, but the battle to escape Eggtropolis is only beginning. Come back next time as I take a look at IDW Sonic issue 51. Even when mind-controlled, Orbot and Cubot know to cower when an angry Eggman approaches. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 51. Right off the bat, I'm giving you a major spoiler warning since we're dealing with the immediate aftermath of issue 50. So if you haven't read it, or any of its preceding issues, I recommend leaving now and coming back when you do. But if you don't care about spoilers, well, here we go. Previously on the big milestone issue, there was a massive conflict between the game characters Sonic, Tails, and Eggman, and the imposters Surge, Kit, and Starline. The result? The game characters won. Yeah. As for the fate of the imposters, Surge was dangling over the edge of a cliff until debris fell in her general direction. It looks like she's a goner, right? Well, no. Future issue solicitations revealed that Surge is still alive and will still be a threat. Tails was able to shut down Kit's water pack and accidentally shut off Kit as well. Feeling responsible, Tails decided to take Kit with him. And as for Starline, he went insane after Eggman one-upped him in every way before getting crushed by debris. Unlike Surge, he did not survive. Yeah, it's been confirmed on one of Ian Flynn's podcasts that unless fan demand was high, Starline is dead. With Eggman back in control of his empire, his first order of business is to unleash a city full of badniks at Sonic, Tails, the unconscious Kit, and Belle the Tinkerer, who accompanied them. Yeah guys, time to bail. Among the gathered badniks is an E2000, and those things are no joke, at least from my experience. Speaking of Sonic heroes, Sonic utilizes his Blue Tornado move to take care of some of the smaller badniks while the others flee through an alleyway. Well, in Belle's case, Sonic threw her like a baseball, executed the move, and runs over to catch her before she hits the ground. Movie Sonic would be proud. They hide in a building, at least I think that's a building, and Sonic wants to know what exactly is going on. Belle just flat out tells him everything. Based on what she can piece together, this is all Starline's fault. Attacking the city with his enforcers Surge and Kit, as well as summoning the badniks to lure Sonic in, and raising an army at the same time. Eggman struck back, and Starline's a goner. Oh, don't worry, I'll discuss Sonic's reaction in the next section. Anyway, Belle reveals she's got all this information by downloading data during her link-up with Metal Sonic. At the moment, she can no longer access the EggNet. However, she does retain some downloaded data, including the location of a hangar in a nearby district. Tails could hotwire a shuttle for them to escape in. But the problem is, there are still a buttload of badniks out there. Sonic, of course, will distract them, and once Tails gets their escape vehicle airborne, he can pick him up. The odds will be against Sonic since he's dealing with more badniks than he can normally handle alone. Besides, in addition to hotwiring the shuttle, Tails needs to look after the unconscious Kit and Belle. With that settled, Sonic heads off and dares Eggman to unleash all his badniks at him. After a bit of a wait, an egg monitor arrives. Eggman says that Sonic is in his city, and he will tear it down just to get rid of him. To prove his point, the badniks below tear down the building Sonic's standing on. And so the battle between Sonic and the numerous badniks begins. At the hangar, Tails deals with the guard badniks before he and Belle locate the shuttle. In a nice bit of continuity, the guard badniks ignore Belle because she's technically a badnik herself. The one thing the badniks cannot ignore is a speedy blue hedgehog. Sonic's actually enjoying this, fighting off models that he hasn't seen in a long time. Eggman says he can't keep it up forever, and Sonic admits to himself he's right. Between running towards the city, the fight with Surge, and now against all these badniks, he's starting to run out of juice. Luckily he spots the shuttle, and after some well-placed running and wall jumping, he makes it on board. The egg monitor also got on board, allowing Sonic a moment to gloat. The Badniks are pulling back, so the gang's in the clear, right? Nuh-uh. Eggman ordered the Badniks back because he wanted one specific robot to have his moment. Metal Sonic. Earlier, Eggman caught on to Sonic's plan, especially when it was pointed out that the Hedgehog was alone. So he ordered Metal Sonic to track down Tails' group and take any necessary action. Eggman also gave special orders to keep Belle intact if possible. He's got some future ideas for her. This extra planning paid off for Eggman as Metal Sonic trashes the shuttle. The good news is, everyone survived the crash. Bad news, they didn't even make it halfway out of the city. And even worse, Sonic is injured. At least according to this panel. And so we end the issue with the group in a worse position than before. Those of you who read the issue might be asking, aren't you forgetting about a certain character? Don't worry, I haven't. After Belle laid out Starline's plan, Sonic and Tails briefly mentioned their fights against Surge and Kit respectively. Sonic even points out that Surge could not have survived that debris falling on top of her. That's when the comic cuts to a full page showing Surge surviving getting crushed by debris. I didn't include this in the summary proper since A, it was just that one page, and I couldn't find a way to place it in the summary without making it feel a little awkward. And B, as I've already said, future solicitations have already revealed her survival, so it's not really much of a surprise. I will concede on the following. First, it is possible that not everyone reads the solicitations because they do not want to be spoiled. And this scene is for their benefit. Yeah, that's kind of a stretch. Second, it was established in the Imposter Syndrome Miniseries that Surge and Kit have modified Metal Virus for that extra healing factor, and we've seen Surge survive getting crushed by a spiked ball. And third, it sets up Surge's new goal to gain more power to wipe out Sonic and company. Something the aforementioned solicitations accurately pointed out. Which brings me to my next thought. So it turns out Eggman City is called Eggperial City and not Eggtropolis like Imposter Syndrome number 4 solicitations said. Eggperial City's fine, the dock still has an empire to run, and it is a play off the word Imperial, just with an egg in it. But personally, I prefer Eggtropolis. Maybe the original plan was to call the city that, but was changed at the last minute due to a number of factors, and there wasn't time to alter the Imposter Syndrome 4 solicitations in a timely manner. These things happen, so sometimes it's best to take in future solicitations with a grain of salt. Let's move on to the deceased platypus in the room. Sonic's reaction to Starline's demise. When this preview first popped up online, people had things to say on it. What are my thoughts on the panel? I don't mind it. Starline's been a pain for everyone ever since his first appearance, so I don't blame Sonic for being done with the guy. Heck, he was done with Starline back in issue 25 after he just watched the guy being tossed through a portal by Metal Sonic. And this is the same guy that is merciful towards his greatest enemies, after they've been neutralized of course. That's saying something. Now I wonder if Sonic would have presented the same opportunity to the defeated Starline if given the chance. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get to the fun stuff. There are game nods aplenty in this issue. A lot of it comes from the numerous Badniks. Some are from games you wouldn't know off the top of your head, and others you would have to look up, like I did every once in a while. Seriously, I forgot Eggman used this type of Badnik in this specific game. Another nod you may or may not pick up right away is the egg capsule following Sonic, just like it did Shadow in his game. Though in this case, it's to mock Sonic rather than help him. There's Sonic pulling out some old tricks like the blue tornado, and the wall jumping he's known for in the modern games. And there is one more game nod I did not notice right away, even though I should have. The shuttle our heroes tried to use to escape. It looks like the same one Eggman used at the end of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You know, Doomsday Zone? Let's see what this thing's actually called. The final weapon? Alright, in a meta sense, this is the final boss of the game. but I will always think of it as an escape vehicle first. Sure didn't help Sonic and his friends escape this time. Eggman's been on a roll lately. Not only did he prove himself superior to Starline by planning ahead, he anticipated the hero's escape plan and had the appropriate countermeasures ready. And this is why the epilogue is going to be sort of a two-parter. Overall, I really enjoyed this issue. Sonic is basically going through a gauntlet level, the kind you have to hold on long enough until a cutscene triggers. The art really does lay out that fact. Some of you are probably wondering, why was Sonic getting tired? Didn't he do all that running during the Metal Virus saga just to reduce the virus load on a consistent basis? Yeah, that is a bit puzzling. But you could argue that the Metal Virus saga took place over a matter of days. Sonic actually had brief amounts of time to recover between running sessions, and it's only after the virus adapted to Sonic's speed that the Hedgehog became really tired. From issue 49 to now, it's been nothing but non-stop action. TLDR, Sonic can be as active or as tired based on plot demands. Well, for Sonic, it's game over thanks to getting injured in the crash. Thus, escaping from Eggperial City just became harder. To complicate things further, the crash seems to have awakened Kit. Will he help the heroes escape, or will he betray them at a critical moment? We'll see when Evan Stanley takes over writing duties next issue, and hopefully gets the group out of Eggman City. See ya then! Wait. If Bell downloaded data from Metal Sonic during their brief link-up, does this mean Metal Sonic might have downloaded stuff from Bell, including things about the restoration? No wonder Eggman was originally nonchalant about letting her go. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 52, and before I continue, I'll go ahead and place my spoiler warnings here. Where we last left off, Sonic, Tails, and Bell were trying to escape Eggperial City with the unconscious Kid in tow. Unfortunately, there were a lot of badniks in the way. Sonic tried to divert their attention, while Tails hijacked a shuttle. Eggman saw through the ruse and sent Metal Sonic to destroy the shuttle, injuring Sonic in the process and leaving everyone in a worse position than before. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Surge survived and is planning her next move. Not surprising since, as I've pointed out, future solicitations and covers already revealed this fact. However, we'll see how Surge will try and gain an advantage over everyone else in this issue. Let's get started. Metal Sonic charges up his V Maximum Overdrive attack in order to dive bomb our heroes. Thanks to Tails, they're able to get out of the way just as he touches down. The group goes through some narrow alleyways, betting on the fact Metal Sonic cannot reach top speed in there. Doesn't mean he's any less dangerous. Thanks to Tails, again, Sonic kicks a bunch of crates, with his good foot mind you, from above onto Metal Sonic to slow him down. When they reach an open area, Kit, now fully conscious, goes into a panic. He desperately wants to be with Surge again. Before they can tell him what happened, they hear Metal Sonic approaching. Out of options, Sonic asks Kid if he can use his water powers to, quote, make Metal seriously regret his life choices. In case you're wondering how Sonic knows about Kid's powers, Tails did mention the water pack in the previous issue, so don't worry, no plot holes here. After some hesitation, Kid agrees to help them. Thing is, Kid's pack is still empty and he needs to refill it. By pure happenstance, there's some large water containers nearby. Metal Sonic enters the area and Kid successfully holds back and buries the robot in rubble. Thanks to Eggman recalling the Badniks last issue, the group is able to make it to the city's outer wall without incident. Tails drops Kid outside, while Sonic and Bell take one last look at the place. The former is concerned about what Eggman can do to the world as long as the city exists. For the moment, the only thing to worry about is Metal Sonic busting out and charging towards them. He utilizes another overdrive attack, but stops when Bell steps between him and Sonic. She believes that Metal Sonic doesn't have to fight, that this can be resolved peacefully. Sadly, she's wrong. Add yet another tally to the Bell must suffer board. Before the injured Sonic and Metal Sonic throw down, an explosion occurs at the main tower. Sonic mockingly tells Metal to check in on Daddy Dearest, and Metal takes off. Tails flies up wondering what's happened, and Sonic says whatever's happening at the tower is Eggman's problem. So what is going on at the tower? Well, let's go back a bit and check in on Surge. She climbs her way out of the garbage incinerator room, only to get nearly run over by a garbage tank. Junk flings by her face, and it just so happens among them is Starline's discarded glove. Surge correctly figures Eggman was too much for the platypus because, under normal circumstances, he would never let his glove out of his sight. After pondering whether or not she's actually free of his influence, she declares she'll be better and stronger than Starline, symbolized by her tossing the glove into the incinerator. Surge climbs up the main tower's garbage chute and winds up in a storage area where Cubot is currently in. In typical Cubot fashion, he opens the hatch when he hears an odd noise, and Surge welcomes herself inside. She looks around for anything that'll help her get stronger, including briefly looking at Eggman's Sonic Adventure 2 gun, before eyeing something on a desk. She forces Cubot to explain what the device is. It's revealed to be the Dynamo Cage. It's used to harness energy from Wisp, whether they want to give the user their power or not. Surge ignores Cubot's warning about Eggman not working out all the kinks and slips it on. Presumably, her powering on the device caused the explosion heard earlier. And when Eggman arrives on the scene, he's greeted by a powered up Surge, ready to have some fun. There seems to be a number of coinkydinks going on in this story. This isn't a knock against coincidences in general. They do happen in both real life and in fiction. With the case of the latter, coincidences are necessary to advance the plot. Plus, this is a comic series based on a video game franchise. Just thought I'd get this off my chest. Another thing to note is the coloring. Reggie Graham, whom I've talked about briefly in my 2019 annual review, has done most of the issues since Evan took over as main writer. But for some reason, this is the first time I really paid attention to his aesthetic. What I think he's going for is a rough texture that is kinda reminiscent of newsprint paper all comics used back in the day, before a number of them switched to glossy paper. Before you comment on the scans I'm using, I should point out that they are present in both the digital copy I bought on iBooks and the physical copies I own. Yes, I bought multiple copies of an issue. Support the book if you can, kids. Anyway, my point is, at times, the coloring can be a bit jarring between issues, especially when you compare Reggie's coloring in this issue to the crisp, clean digital aesthetic of the last one. Okay, moving on to issue 52 itself. As expected, the issue wraps up the current story arc surrounding issue 50, while paving the way for future developments. With Surge and Kit now separated from each other, we're witnessing them taking different paths. Being with the heroes, Kit is starting to act a little more independently. His need to be with Surge conditioning is still there. That's not going away overnight. But when presented with a choice to either say, bail and go look for her, or use his water powers to help the heroes, he chose option number 2. It helps that he's surrounded by people that care for his well-being, and when presented with that choice, he was asked rather than bullied into it. As a result, Kit became the MVP for the group, and it must be embarrassing for Metal Sonic to be once again caught by water tentacles. This is a good first step for Kit. Perhaps there is a chance for him to get better in some fashion, but there's also a chance he could relapse if he discovers Surge's whereabouts. Which brings us to our Electric Tenric. Surge is continuing her burn the world plan and says she'll be better than Starline ever was. So what better way to do so is by stealing Eggman's stuff, just like Starline used to do. Surge is also unsure she's free from Starline's influence. Future solicitations and covers imply, no, she's not. We'll talk more about that when the time comes. For now, let's focus on Surge's new toy, the Dynamo Cage. Cubot says it can absorb energy from Wisp and presumably other sources. It would make sense that Eggman would continue to find ways to use the Wisp Hypergo-On energy for himself, although this time similar to the way Sonic does, except by force and not relying on a mech. While he no longer has access to Planet Wisp, according to issue 3 of the main book, a number of the little guys decide to stick around after the events of Sonic Colors and act as powers for the Wispins. Might as well try and take an advantage of their presence on the planet. Funny that the Dynamo Cage just happens to look like a visual upgrade to Surge's electromagnetic propulsion accessories. I think Evan did that on purpose. I believe she's doing a nod to the accessory upgrades characters would get throughout the Sonic Adventure games in order to utilize new abilities. Now I'm picturing Takal in ball form saying, "This is the Dynamo Cage. It will allow you to absorb the power of the Wisp, whether they like it or not." Surge, for the moment, has an advantage, but based on the fact that it's a prototype, and Cubot mentioning there are still some kinks to work out, it might not go so well in the long run. If and when it does break, she does not have the technical knowledge to fix it, and I don't think the likes of Tails or Eggman will help her. However, she could still do a lot of damage in the short time she has the cage. Even though Surge and Kid got a lot of focus this issue, the other characters had their moments. There's Tails stepping up here and there to help the group escape, and despite being injured, Sonic is able to stall Metal Sonic for a bit, and is willing to go toe-to-toe with him before Surge's explosion at the tower had to end things. Actually, Metal Sonic could have achieved victory before the explosion happened if it wasn't for Belle. Admittedly, it was naive for her to try and change Metal's mind. His goal in life, i.e. his programming, is to beat Sonic in order to prove himself that he is superior, and except for Eggman, now at least, no one, not even his sister, will stand in his way. Okay, maybe she did for a few moments, but those moments were crucial. Otherwise, Sonic would have gotten a face full of V Maximum Overdrive. Finally, I would like to address Sonic's comment about Eggperial City, that as long as this place exists, it can be a threat to the world. This is true. Who knows what havoc or devices Eggman could unleash from there. I have a feeling that's going to be the next overall arc. But first, our heroes will have to contend with Surge. Next time, she'll be using her new item to hunt down an ally of Sonic that just happens to have some wisps on hand. Be careful, Whisper. I'll see you in issue 53. If Jakks Specific were to one day make figures based off the IDW Sonic series, I have no doubts this will be part of the lineup. And honestly, I would buy Dynamo Cage Surge in a heartbeat. Please make it happen. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 53. Before I continue, I'll go ahead and place my spoiler warnings for this issue and any previews of future issues here. Okay? Okay. We are fully entering the next arc, which is the fallout of the events surrounding issue 50. I won't recap too much about what happened there since you can go back and watch my previous videos on the subject, but I will say where the characters are at this moment. Sonic, Tails, and Belle successfully escaped Eggperial City with Kit's help, and a timely explosion that stopped Metal Sonic from pursuing them. That explosion was caused by Surge, who just acquired an experimental device called the Dynamo Cage, designed to absorb all kinds of energy for the user, and Eggman's now face to face with her. Eggman recognizes Surge as one of Starline's flunkies, but decides not to pursue the matter further. He just wants his Dynamo Cage back, and orders his Egg Pawn to take care of Surge. Problem is, thanks to the Dynamo Cage, Surge absorbs the blaster energy, and promptly wipes out the robots. Eggman says the Dynamo Cage is not supposed to work like that, but Surge doesn't care. It's hers now, and she'll use it however she wants. Since Sonic is her #1 priority, she spares Eggman for the moment and leaves. As she revels in her newfound power outside the city, someone comments on her new toy. Dr. Starline? Actually, no. Before people comment on his surprise return, the Starline we're seeing right now is Surge's hallucination. Evan made sure to point this out through the Starline hallucinations dialogue, as he theorizes that the Dynamo Cage is overcharging her brain to make him appear, as well as taunt her. Surge will have none of it and tries blasting him away, though basically she's shooting at nothing. The next day in Tails' Central City lab, he finishes patching up Sonic's injury. Kit really wants to make sure Sonic's comfortable, but Sonic says he's fine, and asks Kit to put away the first aid equipment. Tails asks about what to do with Kit, and Sonic says he's going to tell him the truth about Surge and Starline. He figures he owes the Kit that much since, no matter how screwed up their dynamic was, Surge, Kit, and Starline were essentially a family. As soon as Kit returns, Sonic explains what happened to Surge and Starline. To say Kit doesn't take it well is an understatement. Elsewhere in Central City, the very much alive Surge is daring someone to challenge her in her new souped up state. Enter Whisper, who just happens to be in the neighborhood. Her Wisp buddies are confident they can take her out no problem. In a nice bit of continuity, we actually get to see her dialogue courtesy of Whisper's mask. Something established in the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. And indeed, Whisper and her Wisps are giving Surge a run for her money. Before she can strike back, Surge runs out of juice. As she tries to figure out where she can get more power, she remembers Cubot's words about the device absorbing Wisp energy. She tests this out by letting Whisper shoot her point blank, and yep, she absorbed the energy. No longer fearing Whisper, Surge tackles her to the ground. The pink spike Wisp tries to intervene, but all it does is invite itself to be absorbed by Surge. Whisper switches to Blue Cube, but it does jack squat against a pink power Tenric. Surge, now having a taste of Wisp energy, decides she wants more, so she breaks open the Wispin and absorbs Blue Cube. Back in Tails' lab, he gets a call from Jewel about disturbing reports in Central City. Well, Sonic and Tails are in the area, so they'll check it out. Belle, oh yeah, she's here too, will keep an eye on the emotionally broken Kit. Upon returning to the Surge and Whisper fight, the former has successfully off-panel absorbed Orange Rocket and Green Hover, leaving only Scion Laser by Whisper's side. Desperate to get her Wisp back, Whisper goes after Surge with a piece of shrapnel from her wrecked Wispin. Valiant effort, Whisper, but as Surge demonstrates, you're clearly outmatched. Too bad for Surge, Hallucination Starline returns to further taunt her. She's so distracted that she didn't notice Sonic's arrival. As Sonic and Surge begin round 2 of their fight, Tails takes Whisper to safety. She is an emotional wreck as she tells Tails she needs to get her Wisp back. In the lab, Belle watches the news to get updates on the situation. Kit, watching from a distance, decides to go out and help Sonic. Belle tries to talk him out of it, but Kit says he was made to help Surge, but since he thinks she's gone, the next best person to help is Sonic, and no one will stop him from going to him. Belle's attempt to reason with him only ends with debris falling on top of her. Add another tally mark, people. The issue ends with Kit going to help Sonic, unaware that he's fighting the person he was originally programmed to help. Oh boy, does Evan Stanley not pull any punches when it comes to making the comic originals suffer a bit. Let's go ahead and get Belle out of the way. If you're wondering why she's here at all, first, I'd figure Tails' Central City lab is closer to Eggperial City than his workshop, so they can recover quicker and easier. I mean, after all, it's only been a day since they escaped Eggman City. Second, it seems she's trying to fix Motobud. I think that's what is supposed to be on the table. It makes sense considering that the robot is the final link Belle has to her father, Mr. Tinker. And finally, she's there to try and talk Kit out of leaving. But we all know how that ends up. I'll give her points for fancy dodging thanks to her pull, tail, and kick ability, but ultimately, Water Tentacles won out. Interesting that Belle still has the Zeddy Zapper on her back. Again, not much time has passed since it was placed on her, so there might not have been a chance to take it off yet. Or, to speculate a bit, she might fall under Eggman's control if removed. We'll have to see. Oh boy, Kit. Starline's conditioning lingers on, i.e. undying loyalty to a speedster with attitude. I say this because even before being told about Surge's fate, he was already shifting towards Sonic, and after thinking Surge is dead, that undying loyalty was fully transferred to the Hedgehog. Even with everyone trying to tell him to think for himself, Kit refuses to believe he can be anything but a mere lapdog. I hope the kid can get some sort of happy ending after all this. Surge, though, may suffer more in the long run. Oh, she may have the power now, but as Eggman stated, she's using the dynamo cage completely wrong. That's bad when the mad scientist warns you not to use it like that. Plus, again, it's an unfinished prototype. Eventually, she'll come crashing down from her power trip, just like it didn't end well for Starline. I believe we have a solid answer to Surge's question about whether or not she's actually free of Starline's influence. Definitely not. Not only is she taking Eggman's stuff without fully understanding it, she thinks she can be better. The only difference is, she's not that smart. The other main reason she's still a slave to Starline's influence is the Starline hallucination itself, no doubt brought about by a combination of the dynamo cage and the numerous amounts of brainwashing Starline put her through. My theory is, Hallucination Starline is a manifestation of Surge's insecurities because he keeps taunting her with things like being a bully, how sloppy she is, and so on and so forth. In a nice touch, Adam Bryce Thomas kept Hallucination Starline's eyes black to emphasize his boogeyman aspect, and it's to remind us that Surge is ultimately a victim of Starline. Sympathetic backstory or not, at the moment it's hard to root for Surge's well-being when she's hurt another character with a definite traumatic backstory. I haven't seen Whisper this emotional since she lost Tangle to the metal virus, with good reason. Those wisps are all that remain of her team, her family, lost because one of them betrayed the others. Must have been extremely traumatizing getting crushed by a blue cube, which, to remind everyone, was originally associated with Mimic. I'm sure, no, scratch that, I really hope when this is all over, Tails can repair Whisper's Wispin, if he can get a hold of Smithy's designs. The game characters didn't do that much besides get in on the action, though I will highlight Sonic being blunt about telling Kit the truth. He's all, let's rip the band-aid off quickly, as opposed to the let's take it slow approach Tails suggested. Things are going to get crazier next issue, as Sonic vs. Surge Round 2 is in full effect, and Kit will be arriving soon. Will he side with Sonic, or rejoin Surge and take down the Hedgehog? Will Surge even take Kit back since she's more powerful than ever? We'll find out in issue 54. I guess what Zordon said is true. Too much pink energy is dangerous. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 54. From this point forward, there will be spoilers aplenty. You have been warned. Where we last left off, Surge got herself a new toy in order to gain more power, the Dynamo Cage. While it did provide her with additional juice from sources such as Energy Blast and Forward Whisper's Wisps, there was a nasty side effect. It caused Surge to hallucinate a Starline that taunted her for being a loser. Sonic and Tails arrived on the scene of her attack on Central City, and when Kit learned of the attack on the news, he started making his way there in order to help out Sonic, unaware that the attacker is someone who was considered dead and was originally loyal to. This will be awkward. Sonic and Tails distract Surge by trying to stay in the air. As long as she's focused on them, she can't wreck the rest of the city. That strategy doesn't last as Surge spin dashes into them, knocking Tails out and re-injuring Sonic's leg. While it looks bad, there is a small bit of hope. Whisper sends her Scion Wisp to merge with Sonic.
Laser!
It doesn't last as Surge times it just right and rips Cyan out of Sonic. Now she has the full set. Sonic points out that wisps are living creatures, but Surge doesn't care. They're just power to her. As she monologues, Tails signals Sonic to follow him to a nearby department store. He asks Sonic to stall her while he sets things up in the tools and appliances section. Surge busts in, now utilizing laser beams. In her recklessness to blast down Sonic, she fails to notice the bolts that fell to the ground. You can see where this is going. This blunder by Surge gives Sonic time to buy more time by sticking a bucket on her head. Sonic heads downstairs where Tails has finished rigging a bunch of appliances together with jumper cables. Surge follows, and Tails quickly attaches a pair of cables to her. The appliances begin draining power from her, but she won't let some ordinary household products stop her. She powers up, destroying the appliances, but it overloaded her. Before Sonic and Tails can get a chance to remove the Dynamo Cage, Sonic's leg injury acts up. Hey Sonic, you know what would help? A boot made of rusted metal. Yeah. To further complicate things, Kid arrives. Seeing Surge in this state, let's just say he's not happy. He accuses Sonic of lying to him about what happened to her and attacks Sonic, only for Tails to cancel water power with wind power. Just before we get a round 2 of Tails vs. Kit, Surge starts coming to. Kit grabs her and leaves, telling them not to follow. Everyone regroups at Tails' house. Sonic says his leg is starting to get better, and they will follow in order to rescue Whisper's wisps. Which brings us to Whisper in a corner, cradling her broken Wispin. Belle heads over to introduce herself. She brings up that she's familiar with her thanks to Tangle, and offers to fix her Wispin. Whisper allows it. Meanwhile in Eggperial City, Orbot and Cubot list off what Surge has wrecked, including Cubot's mint-condition Cyber Singer Mika figurine. I think. It kinda looks fine to me apparently. I wonder what that's based off of. Eggman's more curious about how Surge is using the Dynamo Cage in an unorthodox manner, and her construction in general. Therefore, he's putting his current plans on hold until he learns more, and he and Metal Sonic are heading on a road trip. Back over to the imposters, Kit brought Surge back to Starline Base Sigma to recover, thinking it's safe. But all it does is cause Surge's Starline hallucination to reappear. Once again, he taunts her, saying that she's back where she was made and that she'll always be his. This causes Surge to freak out to the point of crying. The hallucination disappears, and Surge sees Kit comforting her. After he apologizes for abandoning her, Surge quickly regains her composure and tells Kit that soon they'll make everyone pay. Sonic did alright for himself despite being injured, relying on a classic game trick, then using a classic slapstick trick. But Tails is undeniably the MVP of this issue. He saved Sonic and Central City by quickly whipping up a means to drain Surge's power using items from an ordinary department store. MacGyver would be proud. He was also willing to defend the injured Sonic from Kit. I'm not surprised Kit would return to Surge as soon as he saw her, and accuse Sonic of lying. Once again, in Sonic's defense, he didn't know until now she survived, or has regenerative capabilities. I know I keep bringing up these facts, but it is important to consider them with regards to Sonic's decisions in this arc. Now, was Sonic right to tell Kit about Surge's fate immediately? In my opinion, I don't think it mattered. Surge's attack still happened, and they were going to find out one way or another. I do have a theory of what might have happened differently. Kit would follow Sonic and Tails sooner, even if they told him to stay put. Kit was already imprinting on Sonic before being told what happened, remember? The moment he spotted Surge, he'd rejoin her in a heartbeat. This would make things harder since Tails would never get a chance to do his department store shtick. I hate to be cruel, but Sonic being upfront with Kit was the better outcome for Central City, even if it cost him an ally for the moment. Ultimately, it's Starline's handiwork that's at fault. Kit must serve Surge. That is his only purpose in life. At the very least, he was courteous enough to let them live with a warning when he and Surge retreated. Speaking of, the reason she lost this battle is because she was so laser focused on Sonic, literally in this one case, she didn't mind her surroundings. It made her vulnerable to ordinary slapstick, and it allowed Tails to drain her power. Granted, it seems Surge sped this along, but I don't think she intended to lose that much juice to the point of overloading. Her threat could have ended right there if not for Kit's intervention. Even while licking her wounds in a supposed safe place, it doesn't mean she's out of the woods. There's that pesky Starline hallucination she has to contend with. I particularly like this panel of Surge in the corner with the Starline hallucination looming over her. Though I will have to dock points for not looking as creepy as he did last issue. It's because we're dealing with different artists here. I don't mean to knock on their work, it's fine. But there was something about Adam Bryce Thomas's Starline hallucination that made him look, for lack of a better term, inhuman. Regardless, I have a feeling that the Starline hallucination will pop up in an inopportune time for Surge during a final confrontation, and it will most likely cost her big time. A reminder that while she is a grade A jerk, she too is Starline's victim. As of this issue, the chances of these two getting a downer ending just went up. People have pointed out to me that the Dynamo Cage reminded them of Metal Sonic's modifications in Sonic Colors' Rise of the Wisps. I guess it is possible that the device was inspired by the animated shorts. Now I wonder if those events happened in the IDW Sonic universe, and Eggman built the dynamo cage based on that. Eggman and his crew may have popped up for only a page, but it is significant. Surge's actions have inspired him to look into Starline's work, and if successful, he might apply it to his own. Well, there's some irony for you. The original wants to imitate the imitator, and if he does wind up acquiring data on cyborgs and applying them, it'll bring him closer to his Archie counterpart, and we all know he enjoys messing with his cybernetic underlings. Moving on to a lighter subject, there's Belle and Whisper. First of all, I enjoy these small moments of Belle not being the universe's punching bag, and second, their interaction is a nice callback to Trial by Fire. Not only with Belle bringing up Tangle's conversation about Whisper on the log, but Belle comforting someone in distress. In this case, offering to help fix the Wispin. This, plus Sonic and Tails promising to rescue her Wisp, puts Whisper in a better mood. I do appreciate Whisper's determination, but she can only get so far without her wisps or her weapon. I am aware of issue 57's preview, by the way, and if you look it up, let's just say beware of spoilers. Anyway, it seems we have a three-way showdown coming up as we head into the final 2 issues of this arc. Funny enough, all 3 parties are a duo consisting of a speedster and a smart guy, each with their own goals, whether it be a rescue mission, gathering intel, or simply causing mayhem. Before you ask how Sonic, Tails, Eggman, and Metal Sonic locate the base, I'm going to say they have a way to track Surge and Kit. Plus, the base once belonged to Eggman. If he figured out Starline stole power cores, he can discover one of his facilities has been deleted. We'll see how things unfold in issue 55. See you then. Maybe it's the way it's drawn, but seriously, the figurine looks fine. Maybe there's a mark on the cheek, but that's it. Actually, here's what I think really happened. Surge ripped the figurine out of its packaging. That would ruin the value. Welcome everyone to my review of IDW Sonic issue 55. We're at the penultimate issue of the Overpowered arc, and as always with these videos, spoilers from this point forward. Previously, since it has been a while, Sonic and Tails were able to stop Surge's rampage of Central City by using regular old household appliances to drain her power, though Surge herself helped things along. It was bittersweet as Surge successfully captured Whisper's Scion Wisp during the conflict, and Kit arrived to rescue her before the dynamo cage can be removed. Sonic and Tails plan to follow them to save Whisper's Wisps, but they are not the only ones who are going after Surge. Eggman has taken interest in her, and Starline's work in general, after witnessing his dynamo cage being used in an unexpected way. All 3 parties are set to converge at Surge and Kit's home and current hiding spot, Starline Base Sigma. Kit has finished routing everything in the base to Surge, but the process overloaded the breaker. It's enough for Surge for the moment. Kit suggests they run and hide, but Surge is determined to make a final stand here. Outside, Sonic and Tails arrive at Starline's base, having followed Surge's energy trail. Before they head inside one of the buildings, Sonic's ambushed by Metal Sonic. Oh, for crying out, Sonic. This is the second time in recent memory a speedy character caught you off guard. You're getting sloppy there, buddy. Although, there is something poetic about this. Previously, Sonic was ambushed by Surge, Starline's creation, in Eggman City. Now he's being ambushed by Metal Sonic, Eggman's creation, in Starline's base. They end up in a storage room for a proper battle. Tails arrives to give Sonic the assist, while mentioning that Eggman's here too. This brief 2-on-1 fight is interrupted with Eggman yelling in horror. Metal Sonic breaks off to help the doc, and when Sonic and Tails realize Surge might be engaging Eggman, they follow. So let's go back a bit to Tails' brief encounter with Eggman. The latter complains about Metal Sonic taking off without permission, until he spots Tails below him. Realizing why Metal took off like he did, and seeing Tails at a disadvantage, he starts chasing the fox with his Egg Walker. Tails is able to give him the slip, and would rendezvous with Sonic. Eggman tries to get his bearings, and picks up the dynamo cage's signal, which is right above him. Good thing Eggman came prepared for something like this. After violently tossing Surge off his mech, he orders his egg pawns to engage her. She easily destroys them, but they serve their purpose of buying Eggman time to prepare the big guns. Too bad Surge still has Wisp powers under her command. And that's it for the Egg Walker. Surge rummages through the wreckage to find more power, and she finds some in the form of a Chaos Drive. Surge, those things are used for machinery and chow raising only. During this, Eggman tries to escape through a secret hatch. He believes his hidden codes still work in the Starline modified base. Starline, though, planned for this possibility, and not only did he find and disable the codes, he mocks Eggman for attempting the act in a pre-recorded message. That's when Eggman yells in a panic, the same one heard earlier. Metal Sonic arrives in time before Surge can fry Eggman. Now seriously, based on this panel right here, she believed Eggman was actually made of eggs and was helping herself to a free sample. Sonic and Tails arrived soon after. Oh, that's an embarrassing way to know someone's behind you. It is at this point, Surge, even with all that power, bails. In her mind, the two sides are working together to hurt her, and no matter how powerful she gets, it's never enough. By the time she returns to Kit, she's a nervous wreck. No Starline hallucination required this time. After collecting herself, she tells Kit that Sonic and Eggman have teamed up, but she still wants to end this. Besides, Kit's already made the necessary preparations. Well, it seems Surge might have read ahead a bit on this issue's script, because back in the hallway, Sonic and Eggman have not yet agreed to work together. Sonic gets Eggman to reveal that the Dynamo Cage originally belonged to him, and that's too dangerous. Sonic pulls Tails aside for a quick chat. As much as they want to take on Eggman and Metal Sonic right now, Surge is the bigger priority. And if Sonic just so happens to accidentally break Eggman's gadget in the process, so be it. And so the two sides agree to team up yet again. Though both sides will keep an eye on each other and will resume their own conflict when they leave the place. Tails scans the area and finds there's only one way they can go. Everyone figures it's a trap, but it's the only way to find Surge. They reach a room that has tubes similar to those that house Surge and Kit. Scattered everywhere are Starline's notes on Sonic, Tails, and Eggman, and the blueprints for Surge and Kit. At last, they figured out Starline's plan of creating his Sonic and Tails knockoffs. Eggman's amazed about what Starline did to accomplish this feat, much to Sonic and Tails' disgust. While it looks like Eggman was recognizing Starline's brilliance at last, he's not. He says he's admiring the skills of a defeated enemy in order to boast about his own superiority. I mean, it's not like he's experimented on a living being in order to create a strong world-dominating weapon. Oh wait. In the next room filled with more tubes, Sonic calls Surge and Kit to come out. And they do. He makes them the following offer. Have Surge hand over the Dynamo Cage, and they can all just walk away. Surge declines, and the issue ends with the beginning of the final battle. Even though Starline's dead, he still maintains a presence throughout this arc, whether it's a discarded item, hallucinations, his work on Surge and Kit obviously, and now his old base. In a way, you can kind of feel his aura as our characters explore the place. There's also his notes pertaining to Operation Remaster, and his pre-recorded message to Eggman. In the case of the last one, it's almost as if Starline's getting his revenge on Eggman from beyond the grave. I'm starting to see why they decided to forego the hallucination for this issue. Now I'll give Eggman some credit here. Before learning that his codes won't work, he handled the situation as best he could, catching Surge off guard and tossing her off the mech like it was nothing, reminding us that he is stronger than he looks. Isn't that right, Starline? To go back to where they found Starline's notes, you can tell that they were based on the actual real-life drafts for Surge and Kit. I definitely recognize those character sheets. There seems to be a lot of biotubes in the area. If he was successful in his original goals, was Starline planning on making more knockoffs for characters like Amy Rose, the Chaotix, and so on and so forth? Or perhaps he wanted to create more Sonic and Tails knockoffs to help him run the world. I guess we'll never know. On to the Sonic knockoff he did make. While it seems to be present in the past few issues, there's no point in denying it anymore. Here, Surge is addicted to the Dynamo Cage. And when I say addicted, yeah, that kind. You can see it when she tore into the Egg Walker looking for a fix, and after finding what she was looking for, she gets that look of satisfaction. A buzz, if you will. As we've seen throughout the arc, using a dangerous item to enhance one's performance has side effects. In addition to, or perhaps because of the hallucinations, Surge's paranoia has increased. Like here for instance, if she were in a right state of mind, she might have taken a chance against our 4 game characters. She also believes she needs more power because she doesn't want to be considered weak / doesn't want anyone to hurt her and Kit. Yes, we can see that she actually does care for the little guy, and I think we're getting into infinite territory here.
I'm shaking. Me? Afraid? No, I am not weak. I'm not weak. I am not weak.
And good thing there are no magic gems in this arc. But seriously, seeing Surge slowly deteriorate to the point that she doesn't put on her fake attitude mask in front of Kit, I have a feeling it'll get worse before it's all said and done. Complete with one more appearance by the Starline hallucination. On a lighter note, here are some observations / things I liked throughout the issue. Sonic and Eggman teaming up again. Okay, I rolled my eyes there. But at least it's against a smaller threat compared to the monsters they faced in the past. And they know that once this is all said and done, they'll go back to fighting each other. Then we have Sonic mentioning Metal Sonic stopping in front of Belle. A reminder that Eggman still has interest in her. I mean, it's not like he can whip up another daughter all willy-nilly. Adam Bryce Thomas is back on art duty, and there's this one panel that just stood out to me for some reason. This one featuring Tails and Eggman staring up / down at each other, with Tails eclipsed in Eggman's shadow. You can really feel the tension between the two, and have a pretty good idea of what each of them is probably thinking at the moment. Tails would be like, I wish I had my Cyclone mech here. We don't know if he built a new one after the old one was destroyed by Zombots. And then we have Eggman here probably going, the Fox is here, and he doesn't have his mech. Better take advantage of the situation. I don't know whose idea it was to combine the two Sonic Adventure 2 references into one, but give them some sort of prize, a raise, some cookies, anything, because that's brilliant. The Chaos Drive, by the way, is green, generally associated with speed. How appropriate. Speaking of references, someone on Twitter noted that this panel of Eggman and Metal Sonic is similar to a screenshot from the Sonic OVA. After looking at the two side by side, it could be a coincidence, or it could be intentional, given Adam's art has been known to be anime inspired. See Exhibit A. Finally, I guess we're done with Sonic's leg injury being a plot point. I know he said he heals quickly last time, but that's after his injuries acted up. Although he did receive proper medical care early on, it might have helped. Still, between the end of issue 54 and the start of this one, which I assume is almost immediately, Sonic is fully healed. It's kinda disappointing, especially since the Scrapnik Island miniseries, being released around the same time, utilizes the Sonic leg injury plot point in a much better way. Evan Stanley probably figured, might as well have Sonic back on equal footing, pardon the pun, with his knockoffs for the final confrontation. For being a setup for the finale, the issue has plenty of action and plenty of breather moments where the characters could discuss the situation before things ramp up again. And it will get intense as next time we head into the finale of Overpowered and learn the fates of Surge and Kit. See you then. For some reason, Starline's message to Eggman reminds me of Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park.
You didn't say the magic word.
Welcome everyone to my first IDW Sonic review of 2023, and we're kicking off the new year by looking at issue 56, the conclusion to the Overpowered arc. Before going on, I'm placing my spoiler warning here because things are going to get intense. But first, let's quickly look back at what happened last time. 3 pairs of different factions converged at Starline Base Sigma with different goals. Sonic and Tails were there to stop Surge and rescue Whisper's Wisps. Eggman and Metal Sonic wanted to reclaim the Dynamo Cage and to learn more about Starline's handiwork. And Surge and Kit planned a trap for their enemies. There was some conflict between the first two groups until Surge struck out on her own. This only resulted in Sonic and Eggman teaming up again, and Surge having doubts about her plan. Still, she and Kit forced the 4 game characters to a specific area where they initiated the final conflict. As Sonic and Metal Sonic tag team Surge, Tails deflects Kit's water attacks towards his buddy. He doesn't want to hurt Kit, but he also wants to make sure Kit doesn't hurt Sonic. As the two ascend the tube tower, Tails reveals that he's read Starline's notes and that he's sorry about what happened to him and Surge. At the same time, it does not justify Surge hurting other people and herself. This gets Kit to stand down, with Tails telling him Sonic can make it right. At first, it looks that way as Sonic and Metal Sonic wear Surge down. Surge, though, breaks off to go after Eggman. Metal tries to intercept, but Surge grabs him and uses him as a blunt object to knock Sonic across the room. Metal Sonic activates his black shield to break free of Surge's grip. That was a mistake as Surge absorbs the energy and knocks Metal offline. A re-energized Surge charges towards Sonic at full speed, only for her to miss. She did destroy some of the tubes and water's now flooding the area, something Surge tries to take advantage of. Eggman rescues Sonic, only because he needs him to distract her long enough so that he can repair Metal Sonic. Sonic sticks to the higher areas as Surge unleashes wisp-based attacks in an erratic fashion. During this, Sonic asks Surge, why is she doing this? Starline is gone. She should be free to make her own choice. Surge replies she can't. Thanks to Starline, being in Sonic's shadow has been deeply ingrained into her very being that ditching the only reason she exists is not an option. Sonic's luck runs out as it's soon revealed his leg hasn't fully healed as originally thought. Surge takes advantage of this and dissolves the cube block he was holding on to. That or the block dissolved on its own. Either way, Sonic falls back into the drink, and this time, Surge zaps him so that he'll stay down. She attempts to murder him via strangulation because in her mind, that's the only way she'll be free. However, the amount of energy she's channeling is too much for the Dynamo Cage, and it breaks, knocking her out and freeing the Wisps. They, along with Tails, help Sonic back on his feet, and Eggman chooses this moment to break off the truce. He sends the reactivated Metal Sonic to collect the unconscious Surge. Kit intervenes and grabs Surge instead. He explains that everyone, Starline, Eggman, and even Sonic, only want the two of them because of what they can do. He won't let that happen. Using his own water tentacles, in conjunction with the tube waters, Kit begins collapsing the room with the intent of burying the game characters, along with Surge and Kit's past. Time for an escape sequence. You know, it would be nice if the Wisps could provide Sonic and, maybe Tails, some assistance by lending them their powers? No? Guess the two have to do this the hard way. They make it out, along with Eggman and Metal Sonic, much to their annoyance. Eggman, seeing the angry Sonic and Tails, invokes the truce, the very one he tried to break earlier. Sonic, who is not a backstabber, begrudgingly honors the deal, and the two parties go their separate ways. And that's the end of the issue and the story arc. Overpowered is an apt title for this 5-part arc. For instance, the immediate ultimate goal for Surge was to overpower Sonic. That's what she was made for. When the initial attempt failed in issue 50, she needed something to give her an edge, and she found it with a dangerous experimental device that would give her exactly what she wanted. But in her quest to overpower Sonic, she became overpowered by her insecurities, including being considered weak, more than likely represented by the Starline hallucination. What did her in was that the overpowered condition urge to destroy Sonic was so great, she failed to notice that the Dynamo Cage itself was overpowered until it was too late. What I like about this final confrontation between Sonic and Surge is, Sonic didn't really win this one. Surge was on the verge of strangling him to death when the Dynamo Cage finally gave up the ghost. If it hadn't right there, Sonic would have been a goner. The Sega deities may have given him and the other game characters plot armor, but that doesn't mean the armor goes unscathed from time to time. Kit also falls under the Overpowered umbrella. He easily overpowers Metal Sonic on both the first issue of this arc, and in this issue, the conclusion. I just realized this kind of bookends things. I think Evan did this intentionally, but who knows. Like Surge, Kit is overpowered by his conditioning. In this case, the need to serve. He literally said that's his only purpose. In the end, he let that need dictate his decision to be with Surge, while displaying some of his overpowered skills one last time. Now about Kit's final speech to the group before collapsing the structure. How he and Surge are just wanted for their abilities, and the attempts to change them. That might have been true for Starline and Eggman, but for Sonic, I'll have to disagree with him there. He's only going by what information Starline had on the Hedgehog, and the actual interaction was surface level stuff. And while Kit may have accused Sonic of lying, again, from his point of view, Sonic was telling the truth. He thought Surge died during the initial confrontation, and Kit hastily took action before things could be explained to him. Even Tails' attempts to connect to him, due to his own harsh upbringings, were met with limited success. What it comes down to is, Kit never got the chance to hang out with Sonic and his friends when the world's not in danger. Thus, he never conceived of the possibility that they just want to be friends, or at the very least be on friendly terms with each other without exploiting their powers. His mind again has been twisted by Starline's machinations. So, is this the end of Surge and Kit? It's hard to tell based on this panel. It can go both ways. If they did go the same way Starline did, via collapsing rubble, it's kind of fitting. Starline's work being buried and forgotten. On the other hand, Kit could have used the chaos to slip away along with Surge. His original suggestion to Surge was to run and hide before Surge made the decision to fight. Now Surge is incapacitated, and Kit's doing what he thinks is best for the both of them. We don't know for sure, unless the writers give hints about their fate. If they're allowed to. There might be an NDA thing going on. Personally, I think they're alive. My interpretation of Kit's line about burying their past could mean they're going to put Starline Base Sigma and all of Starline's work behind them and forge their own path. We may see them again in the future when the time is right. Or it could be absolutely wrong and they're dead. One more comment about Surge and Kit's final appearance. It has an anime-esque feeling to it. I know what you're thinking, since when is Sonic not anime inspired? Well, this bit right here gives off Yu Yu Hakusho vibes. For context, at the end of the Chapter Black arc, the main villain of the story is defeated/killed, and he's about to be taken to the spirit world for judgment. But the villain's very loyal partner takes him away instead. He chastises the heroes about their methods before they both disappear to someplace no one will ever find them. That's what immediately popped into my head as I read this section. Another thing of note is this panel of Sonic at the end. Evan and company tweeted it a day or so before the issue came out, and for a while, there was no context behind it. Well, now we know. It's a face that says, I really hate being a hero at times, but if I don't honor the truths, then I'm no different from Eggman. If there is one negative I can take from this issue, it's that it just ends. Sonic and Tails rescue the Wisps, Eggman got nothing, and they part ways. This is the ending to an ongoing storyline. I feel like there should have been at least one more issue dedicated to an epilogue, which would allow the characters to reflect on what's happened, and at the very least, see a joyful Whisper be reunited with their Wisp buddies. Say what you will about the lengthy Metal Virus saga, at least there were a few issues that allowed the characters to breathe, for the most part. Here though, we're done with Surge and Kit. Let's just sweep them aside and move on to the next story arc. Perhaps they'll address some things in the next issue. We'll have to see. And so we've come to the end of a storyline that started way back in the Bad Guys miniseries, possibly even as far back as issue 31, or perhaps even issue 25. Even though game sprite glitches have become the basis for comic characters in the past, I'm still amazed that the writers were able to make new characters based on the likes of Wikinda and Ashura, and they added Blue Knuckles for good measure. I may have said this before, but in case I didn't, it has been a while. The concept of the Glitch Trio was conceived early on in the book's run. To build off that, I've since read somewhere that the original plan was to have the entire trio debut in issue 11, but the idea was changed to just having Starline appear first. Makes you wonder, what if Starline, Surge, and Kit debuted at the same time? Maybe the original plan was for the latter two to kidnap Mr. Tinker instead of reusing Rough and Tumble. From that scenario alone, the series could have gone in a number of different directions. Ultimately, I like what we got better. It shows the links of what a fanboy would try to do for his senpai, the people he's hurt along the way, and have it all be for nothing. And two of those people he hurt had no choice but to follow the parameters he set, erasing all traces of their past for good measure. They were just two random innocent people Starline plugged for his sick, twisted plan. Even when trying to break free, a part of them will always be a slave to his conditioning. Their bodies and mind are forever altered. This feels like a Frankenstein's monster situation. And like Frankenstein's monster, they would go out into the world and hurt innocent people. You want to hate them, but at the same time, you kind of feel sorry for them. They never asked for this. Say what you want about Starline, he was right about one thing. Surge and Kit needed proper care and maintenance. Emphasis on care. He should have treated them more like individuals with feelings rather than a means to an end. They would have at least be more mentally stable than they are now. Even Eggman treats Metal Sonic with more care than them. Mecha Sonic, on the other hand, well, that's a subject for another video. With no more Starline, Surge and Kit do start breaking down in more ways than one, to the point where they refuse help of any kind. Despite Sonic and Tails' best efforts, in the end, sometimes tragic monsters like Surge and Kit cannot be saved or don't want to be saved. With the threat of Surge and Kit behind us, it's time to focus on the comic's next direction. Next time, Ian Flynn returns to the series for a couple of issues as he kicks off a new storyline. And it's something I correctly guessed a number of issues back. Finally, I would like to address Sonic's comment about Eggperial City, that as long as this place exists, it can be a threat to the world. This is true. Who knows what havoc or devices Eggman could unleash from there. I have a feeling that's going to be the next overall arc. Yep, it's time to take on Eggperial City. So look forward to that, along with Tangle and Whisper teaming up again, and the ascension of a long-established background character to a more prominent role in issue 57. See you then. I know you guys just went through a terrible experience with the Dynamo Cage, but seriously, you couldn't loan Sonic and Tails Spike, Hover, or even Rocket during the escape sequence? I'm just trying to justify a potential plot hole here. And that's it for this over 3-hour mega collection. If you've made it this far, you have my utmost respect. It was interesting to revisit Surge and Kit's origins, and Starline's demise. While I did say this was a warts and all thing with the videos, besides cutting the credits of course, there were some things I modified, like re-adding the pan and zooms on the issue 52 intro. Yeah, for some reason I can't find the original issue 52 review, and had to rely on an earlier copy that had the error, and taking out the pre-intro intro of issue 53. At the time, I got the story arc title wrong, and had to address it. In fact, here it is. Before we get started on today's review, I want to quickly address something regarding the name of the current arc. IDW Sonic in general often don't put story titles in the individual issues themselves, so people have to find them through solicitations, interviews, or creators' social media. In the case of the latter, someone asked what's the name of the arc involving Surge and the Dynamo Cage on Evan Stanley's Tumblr page, and she replied, Overpowered, which covers issues 52 through 56. So that means, retroactively, issue 52 is actually Overpowered Part 1. Kinda hard to tell since the beginning of that issue is a direct continuation of the ending of 51, Escape from Eggperial City. I thought I'd let you know before we get started, otherwise, you'd be confused when I present the title Overpowered Part 2. Alright, on with the show. And with the benefit of hindsight, I should have said some more interesting things regarding Surge's actions in issue 56. Like for instance, She was on the verge of zapping Sonic to death with her overclock powers, but the Sega gods intervened to save Sonic and punish Surge at the same time. Hey, I'm only human and prone to mistakes, and in this day and age, that's a good thing. Plus, if you've noticed, you've just witnessed the change in the editing style that I use to this day, namely placing the references in the lower left corner and reducing the size. Pretty much what many content creators do these days. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Also make some comments below to help the video out, and have a good day.